Most excellent. But it almost wasn't. 700 years ago, Paul Rudd changed the course of history by showing the world that anyone could grapple with the concepts of quantum mechanics. It sparked an era of invention and ingenuity the likes of which humanity had never seen. But the Great One almost let this opportunity slip away. So for the sake of our future, I was forced to send a message, 700 years back along the time axis, to prevent his failure.
What is this?
Paul! I didn't wake you, did I? There's a role for this guy who gets his teeth kicked in. I thought you'd be perfect.
Hey man, this is gonna sound strange, but I think I just got an email from you from 700 years in the future.
That doesn't surprise me. I don't age. Once I truly master entanglement, communication via closed, time-like curves should be straightforward.
Oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Hey man, next time you talk to Future Me, find out if I'm still jamming with my band Dogstar.
Alright, I'm hanging up now.
Hanging up.
Yeah, hi, this is Paul Rudd. I'm calling to ask why you haven't invited me to speak at One Entangled Evening. Stephen Hawking? No, well, he can open for me. No credentials? What are you talking about? I'm in SAG. All right. How about if I best your precious expert at a game of quantum chess? Winner gets to give the speech. Hey, is this Stephen Hawking?
This is Dr. Hawking.
Oh, well, this is Mr. Rudd.
Who? Office hours are 3 to 5 p.m.
Oh, no, look, I'm just calling to challenge you to a game of quantum chess, and the winner gets to give the keynote address at Cal Poly.
You mean Caltech? What makes you qualified to speak on quantum mechanics?
Well, I'm in Actors Equity. It's the theater union. But also, I've been to the quantum realm. I've been there. I've seen it. I've felt it. What about you, big shot? What have you done?
Okay, Punk, you are on. I shall crush you like an ant, man.
Ah, so you do know who I am.
See you online, 5 p.m. GMT.
GMT? What does GMT mean? Is that like LOL or something?
Quantum chess, a variant of regular chess in which every piece is endowed with quantum powers. Take this queen, for example. Unlock her true powers, and this quantum queen can move twice in a single turn. The catch? There is an equal chance the queen never moved. The opponent may attack any of the queen's positions, forcing her to reveal her true location. By pure chance, the queen is actually there. The bishop's quantum move is overruled. The queen wins this battle.
I don't understand any of this.
This is but a glimpse of the new possibilities. The full power of quantum chess is far greater, as our story will reveal.
Oh, I'm probably gonna lose.
Ah! A legal trap.
Never again. Never again.
Yes! I think I'm ready.
Are you ready, Paul? I'll make this quick and painful.
Painful, I think that's a typo.
That is not a typo.
Oh.
At 12:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, January 12th, 2016, the battle for the future began. It is a story that has been told for generations. The game began with what looked like a standard opening, but Dr. Hawking was setting up actor Rudd for a legal trap that could have ended the game and our future before it even had.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's very special stream with a very special guest. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me for the first ever Quantum Chess Tournament broadcast. It's the first ever broadcast but also the first ever tournament. Welcome to my channel, welcome to this community, and please tell us about Quantum Chess.
Thanks, Anna. Hi everyone. So I made Quantum Chess and I'm super excited to do this first quantum chess tournament ever. You guys just saw a little bit of a video for that we did years ago for the very first version of quantum chess. So the new quantum chess is slightly different than that. You'll see that today. Basically, it's like chess, but you also get to create superposition where your pieces can exist on multiple squares at once. This is done by a split move, and then you can also do the opposite of split move, which is a merge move. All of the moves, though, are true to quantum mechanics. So it's written on top of a simulation of 64 qubits, where all of the moves are quantum gates that you would do on a quantum computer. And we have actually run this on a quantum computer over the summer with Google. We can't run the full game on a quantum computer yet. We can only run small sequences of moves, but we can run a full game on the simulator. So we're going to do that today with the tournament. And I'll explain more as we go and we see some moves in the game.
It sounds like a fascinating world. I'm a noob at science, mathematics, IT, computing, everything that involves quantum mechanics, quantum computing. I think I'm just like on knowledge level 0, but I'm hoping that with my chess skills I can contribute to today's event.
Well, it is enough like chess, I think, that chess skill really does matter still. I've played against some very strong chess players. Over the summer, I actually played against Conrad Holt, who is a chess grandmaster. And in the first game, I kind of held my own. I was able to keep a pretty decent position, and then I ended up winning just because of a lucky measurement outcome. But the second game, he just stomped on me. So it's like it takes the strong chess players a game or two to get warmed up, and then your chess skills really start to come into play.
I see. Well, I think without further ado, we shall reveal how the board in quantum chess looks like, because it's like traditional chess, but not exactly. So let me bring up our scene, Chris. Let me reveal how a quantum chess board looks like, and we have our first 2 players with us already for the first ever quantum chess tournament. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Strain and Mr. Vincent from Google and Xanadu. And this is the very first match in the quarterfinals of our quantum chess tournament.
You froze there for a second. You still there?
I'm still here. I hope you can hear me. I hope we don't have connection issues.
Sure. A little bit of technical issues there. So
I hope that it will not cut out again. It might have been my internet. Hoping it will stay stable for this very special occasion. As I said, this is the first ever quantum chess tournament. You created the game a couple of years ago, and now it's not only available on Steam, but we are organizing today the first ever chess tournament, quantum chess tournament.
Now, I do want to say that the current public version on Steam is still the old version of the game.
I see.
We do have a beta release that is this newer version that we plan to pushed to public very soon, probably within the next week or two.
I see.
So, all right. When you're ready, I'll tell the players they can go ahead and start.
Whenever they are ready, we are ready for it too. And Chris will be answering all your questions regarding how quantum chess works. As soon as the game begins, I think it will be easier to present what is it when a piece has quantum powers.
Yes. So I hope we see a decent amount of quantum in this first game. These are both actually very strong chess players.
Tell us about the players a little bit. You know both of them much better than I do.
Some notes. They gave me a little bit of a bio, so I'll read that real quick. So, well, I actually know Doug. He's been a collaborator of ours at Google. He was integral in getting the game up and running on Google's quantum hardware. And if we have some downtime in the games, I can actually show a demonstration of that. But he is an engineer at Google. His past chess experience, he writes, he plays on chess.com pretty frequently. He has a correspondence rating of 1900.
I see.
And he's met Kasparov, Anand, Carlson, Nakamura, and Susan Polgar at Google. And then for his interests and hobbies, he likes to play tabletop RPGs like D&D. And he used to play winger for the Albuquerque Aardvark set, a rugby club. So,
interesting facts. And he has met some of the best in the chess world. Wow.
Yeah. So I think some of that has rubbed off on him because I've actually played him correspondence. And
he's really strong in correspondence chess, you're saying.
So, and then Trevor Vincent is a physicist at Xanadu. He's a Chess Federation of Canada National Chess Master. And then an interesting fact about him, he wrote that when Internet Chess Club was the most popular online chess site, he used to be a regular Bughouse chess partner of the legendary Hikaru Nakamura. So.
That is insane. Mr. Vincent, a regular Bughouse partner of Hikaru. Bughouse is a type of chess where you need a teammate, and the pieces you capture, you give it to your teammate, whether online or a physical board. But it's absolute teamwork, and he has been the regular Bughouse teammate of Hikaru back then. That is quite impressive.
Yeah, I've never played Bughouse. I wasn't even aware of what the rules were. So. I have noticed that very strong chess players tend to stick to their chess skills and not use the quantum stuff very much. So it'll be interesting to see if and when these players decide to split a piece. But we do have some other players later in the tournament that I think will be more inclined to use split moves. So it'll be interesting to see.
Tell us about what's going on so far. So we have Doug with the white pieces, Trevor with the black pieces. You see their cameras here as well. I was adjusting the camera of Trevor because he wanted to escape from you guys. He wanted to move out of the face cam, but no, I adjusted that. So now we have him again back on screen. So far, they have been making, from what I understand, traditional chess moves.
Right. Yeah, so far they're both playing completely traditionally. So you can play quantum chess just like regular chess, essentially. All of the traditional moves are in the game. Including special rules like castling and en passant. One of the major differences in the game rules is to win quantum chess, you capture the king. And that means, so there are situations in the game where a piece can exist in a superposition of both being captured and not captured. As long as you have any probability of your king being on the board, you're still in the game. So you have to completely wipe your opponent out to win quantum chess.
Interesting difference.
The other thing is there is no concept of check because of this. So you can do things like castle through check or even move your king into check. One of the interesting last-ditch effort strategies is you can split your king and your opponent might try to capture one half of your king, but then you can try and capture back with the other half. And and the outcome will be random. So
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm just thinking about the king being split. So that's what we would call Schrodinger's king, right? It's from Schrodinger's cat. We are moving on to the Schrodinger's king term. And hopefully it will happen soon in this game. I cannot wait to see if it's going to be Doug or Trevor who makes the first quantum move. What will happen? Can you explain to the viewers who have never seen quantum chess, how do you know when a move has quantum powers?
So there's a special view of a piece that when you split your piece, it gains like this really bright kind of magenta glow to it that backs the icon of the piece. And then there's an outer ring that shows the probability of finding that piece in the square it's in. So as you can split more and more, so like you can split your king once and then again and again, and the probability of each square just keeps decreasing. One of the interesting things is you get interference effects in the game, which is a quantum thing, where the states of the different pieces interact in a way to add up to probabilities that really are kind of counterintuitive. It even surprises me sometimes, some of the probabilities you get when you have pieces interacting. I've had to run through the math over and over again when I think there are bugs, and nope, the math is right. It's just quantum. So
I cannot wait to see the first measurement, but we are still observing a traditional setup, a traditional chess game. It shows that both of them have chess experience, quite some chess experience, because they have gone for a very traditional opening, pushing the queen's pawn, the pawn in front of the queen, and this setup too is a really traditional chess opening that we could see at normal tournaments. Even Grandmaster games could feature a similar setup, maybe not exactly this move order, but they are going for a very solid start. So do you think at this stage of the game it already makes sense to play a quantum move, or would you keep it for later? What's your experience, Chris?
So my experience is that early in the game, it's hard to find meaningful use of things like split moves. You tend to see it more when the position starts opening up a little bit and you get your bishops and your queen out there and stuff, and there's more room to split things around and more interesting options to use. So I tend to use it more in the mid and end game, although I have played around with some quantum openings. One of my favorites is like a variation of the fianchetto, any kind of fianchetto opening. You can split your bishop to occupy, say, b2 and a3 at the same time instead of just fianchettoing to b2. So
Doug could have, instead of the pawn push, he could have split his bishop, as you said, for the fianchetto move, to move it to g2 and h3 at the same time, and Trevor, sorry, I keep confusing the order of the name, but Trevor wouldn't have known if the bishop is on g2 or h3 until he tries to capture that piece.
Right, and actually, sometimes you don't even know when you try to capture. So let's say they had done that. And if you want, I can actually show this in sandbox mode real quick if you want.
Is it possible? I was going to ask if it's possible to present it visually while we are waiting for the next move.
Let me jump over to a sandbox mode real quick.
Sure. Let us know, guys, in the meantime. I am reading the Twitch chat. Chris is reading the Twitch chat too. What do you think so far of the game? And we're gonna present now how a quantum move will be, because both players, both Doug and Trevor, are still waiting for that special move, that special occasion when they will use their first quantum power piece, using a piece with their quantum power. Let's take a look at that bishop move or any other quantum move that you would like to present, Chris, for the viewers.
Yeah, so let's say, I'm not going to play an actual opening here. I just want to show what would happen. This is sandbox mode of the game. It lets me arrange pieces in any configuration I want, and it doesn't respect things like turn order, so I can move the white pieces twice in a row. But you could, say, fianchetto this bishop, but kind of occupy both of these diagonals at once.
And that's a quantum move then, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to see this in the game 2 in the tournament, but this is how it's gonna work. When you split your piece, it could either be on G2 or H3, and there's no certainty on which square it is. You don't know it, your opponent doesn't know it, no one knows it but the universe, I guess. Because at the moment when there will be a measurement, Chris, what happens with the measurement?
So let me just say, though, that one way to think about this is now there are two possible boards, both existing at the same time. One of them, the bishop is on G2. The other one, the bishop is on H3. So now, let's say your opponent went for this capture here.
Yes.
On one of those boards, this bishop on H3 becomes captured. On the other one, the black bishop just moves to H3, and there isn't a bishop there to capture, so now you have a board where this bishop is still on G2, and the other bishop, your opponent's bishop, on H3 can be captured. So here the white bishop is in a superposition of having been captured and not captured.
That means a superposition, and we still don't know for sure.
Right. We still haven't had a measurement that shows what happens. But now, let's say I tried to recapture here on H3 with the G2 bishop. That is going to force a measurement.
Yes.
So it measured, it found that we're in the universe where the white bishop is on G2, and it successfully captured the H3 bishop. Now, that is completely random based on the probabilities there, so we could see the opposite outcome. We might have to try a few times. I've actually gotten incredibly unlucky sometimes in this mistake.
The universe is always against your piece sometimes.
So there. On the third try, we see the other outcome where it measures the G2 bishop and finds it isn't there. So essentially, the white player would have spent their turn measuring their piece out of existence. So
I see. That's unlucky though. If this is what happens to the light squared bishop of white, hopefully in the game both Doug and Trevor will be somewhat luckier with the measurements. I guess you can never know for sure. With the probabilities, there's no guarantee that it's on one square or the other. Shall we jump back to the game and see if Doug or Trevor have dared to make their first quantum move?
Yes, absolutely. So where are we at now?
Was that just a simple trade on G6 or bishop takes G6? I think that's the last move of Doug. That's the move he has just played. And I was hoping maybe the capture will not be a normal move, but it makes more sense to take it with a traditional.
So we still haven't seen a quantum move yet.
Not yet. They are keeping it for the big moment. They are keeping it for you guys. They are waiting. They're saying, no. I need more viewers to join, and then I'm gonna make my superpower piece, the quantum move. What do you think, Chris? Would you go for a quantum move here? Do you see any good moves that would be a quantum move?
As Doug.
Luckily, they can't hear us. Luckily, they cannot hear us.
Yeah. As Doug, well, as the white pieces, you could try, well, let's see. They've kind of simplified the number of power pieces they have. Oh, that's one other thing. You can't make split moves with pawns. They have to be any non-pawn piece can split.
That's an important rule that I forgot about at the capture, that the pawn couldn't have made a quantum move. It's only the pieces, the minor pieces and the heavy pieces, and the king, of course.
Right, yes. So when you're kind of blocked in with most of your pieces, it's hard to really do something super interesting with the quantum moves. Now, one thing that Trevor could actually do would be to split his queen from d7 to, say, e6 and f5, trying to bait the white queen on c2 to capture on f5 and capture back. It's a 50-50 outcome, so it's a very risky move. If you're ahead, you probably don't want to do that.
Yeah. I like the idea. I like it, Chris, because as you said, if you split the queens between those two squares, and if Doug feels like it's my lucky day, I'm gonna capture the queen, but the queen may not be on f5, and then your queen will be captured by the pawn if the white queen moves there.
Right. So, yeah, I tend to overuse the quantum stuff just because I like playing around with it and seeing what happens. And I do have to say I'm not a super strong chess player. I'm probably average.
How would you rate your chess skills? Do you have a rating? An online chess rating, maybe?
So my puzzle rating on chess.com it varies between 1500 and 1600. So
That's great.
strong, but
Oh, that's a great level already, Chris. I didn't know. I had no idea. I don't know what I'm doing here because I thought I was asked whether I wanted to broadcast the first ever quantum chess tournament to add to the chess side, but now I know you could run the show by yourself, Chris.
Oh no,
You don't
no.
need me.
I don't know all the openings and all of that. I play a little bit of rapid with 10 plus 0, and there I hover right around 1200. So
That's still a good level. Well done, well done. I didn't know that you're an avid chess fan and good chess player too. Here, Trevor is spending more time. Can you tell us about the time control? And we can also take a look at the bracket. I have the bracket also ready to show to the viewers if you want to break down the format of the tournament.
yeah, so they're playing 20 plus 15. So each player starts with 20 minutes and they get a 15-second increment every time they make a move. There are 8 players in the tournament right now. One from 8 of the different companies that are sponsoring the Q2B conference put on by QCware. So we have Google, Xanadu, that's what we're watching right now, and then Honeywell and IonQ, Zapata, QCware, Amazon, and Microsoft. These are all companies that are actively pursuing quantum computing technology. The Q2B conference is a conference for quantum computing and its applications in business and industry. So it's going to be single elimination. So there are no points. If you lose the game, you're out of the tournament. If a game ends in a draw or they go to the 1 hour hard time limit, then we will decide the game based on a king face-off that's run on actual quantum hardware, Google's quantum hardware. So
the king face-off sounds really cool on a quantum computer. That's gonna be huge. So even in case of a tiebreak, we're gonna be delighted to see what the quantum computer will bring us. Who will be the winner? Who's moving on to the next stage of the bracket? Another question about the capture that you mentioned in the chat was if you can also capture by playing a quantum move. So with that example that you said, if the queen were to be split between e6 and f5,
right.
And then can white decide to capture on f5 but also move to d3, not to can you do that? So one it would be a capture and the other is just a move to another square.
So with the current rule set, you're not allowed to use split moves or merge moves to try to capture. There's a couple technical reasons for this. It simplifies a lot of the math needed to simulate things and actually simplifies the circuits that you need to run on a quantum computer. But my rationale for not allowing split moves to try and capture is that a lot of times that would just force a measurement, which collapses the state back down, which kind of defeats the purpose of the split move creating superposition.
Exactly. So I started understanding it more as well. Let us know if you have more questions regarding quantum chess. All of you viewers, I'm always reading the chat. Chris also has it on his screen, and we are happy to answer more questions. Well, I say we, but Chris, of course, is the one with the knowledge. I'm here producing the show and hopefully adding to the chess parts. Look at that first quantum move on the board. A king split.
Away for a second.
A king split, Chris.
And have some quantum.
Where is the king? What is going on with Duck's king? Where is it?
So it's in both A1 and C1, and at some point in the future, we'll get a measurement that will determine that. I'm thinking Doug is feeling maybe a little bit pressured in the current position, and he's just trying to preemptively give his king some safety.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the uses of superposition that we've found. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
And this means that if Trevor wants to attack the White King, he will not know for sure whether the king is in the corner or on the C1 square. You'll need to try to hunt down both, basically, or get access to the king in both positions.
Yeah, interesting. So the first ever split move in the first ever quantum chess tournament. So.
And we are still waiting for Trevor to use his superpowers as well with the quantum moves. So far he has been continuing in the traditional path.
No, I think Trevor has been in the Quantum Chess Discord channel practicing a bit with some of the players. So
I
I'm wondering
see.
if he's maybe learned some late game strategies with split moves or not.
Mm-hmm. Great question by DJ in the chat. What happens on a quantum castling? Are both pieces in uncertainty?
Okay, so I could show that actually in sandbox mode 2 if you want.
Sure, let's take a look at that while we wait for Trevor to make a decision here.
Yeah, let me just get the position set up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will change my screen.
Absolutely, take your time. And thank you everyone for joining us for this broadcast, the first ever quantum chess tournament as part of the Q2B Quantum Computing Conference. I already said on my own stream yesterday and today, I have never taken part of a quantum computing conference. I feel like I'm extremely privileged and honored because I clearly have no scientific skills to be here, but I'm happy that the chess skills somehow make up for the rest and I can be part of something that is this amazing. I'm fascinated by the quantum universe and what happens. Where is the king? Will Trevor find where is the king? Who's gonna figure out first if there's a measurement, which piece will be captured? There's so many questions that this quantum chess variant brings up. This is a brand new game based on traditional chess, merged with quantum computing, quantum science, and I think this is, as much as I can see, is just a really cool way of bringing a new version to chess, a new variant.
I think so. It's been a very fun project, very rewarding. So, so we were asked about quantum castling. So one of the castling rules in game, and this was actually purely selfish on my part. I didn't want to have to deal with coding all of the logic of this. Is you can't do a split move and castle at the same time, but you can get superposition if you're castling. So let's say this knight was in superposition on this square that's sort of in the castling path, and I wanted to castle queenside. It's going to castle on the universe where the knight.
I think I lost you
and
for
it
a
doesn't
moment.
castle. So you get this like massive amount of superposition here among all of these pieces. And this is actually an entangled state too, where each position of these pieces depends on the other one. And you can see that with the right click display. So I have this little extra information display that pops up. The colored rings around the outside indicate how entangled the pieces are. So if it's a full ring, it's fully entangled, which means anytime there's collapse, like one piece is found to be in a certain square, the other ones that are fully entangled with it will completely collapse too. So the colors of the rings indicate the relationship of that entanglement. So if they're the same color, then they're entangled to be like in the same universe in some sense. If they're different colors, then they're entangled to be like opposite. So here you can see that these green full rings mean they're fully entangled to be in the same universe. So if I turn this off, I know that this rook on A1 the knight on b1, and the king on e1 are completely in the same universe. If we collapse by a measurement into that universe, those will all be there 100%. And then you saw that the others were the opposite color. So these three exist in the same universe. So those are two different measurement outcomes that you can see with this extra information display.
That is mind-blowing, with all the different colors and which one is entangled, which one is related to which square, which piece. So it would only be known, we would only know if we actually have castled or not once there is, for instance, a capture on b5, or even that wouldn't fully tell us the truth. How would it happen, the measurement? What would we need to do to figure out whether we have castled?
So we would need a measurement. If I tried to move this rook forward to, or actually, let's see, no, the queen backward to occupy d1, it would force a measurement.
Yes.
So I'll show that real quick, but then I'm going to jump back to the game because we have some more quantum.
Sure.
So it measured this d1 rook, found that it wasn't there, which collapsed everything to be consistent via the entanglement relationships. But let me jump back to the game now, because I think Doug made another quantum move.
Amazing. I cannot wait to see the next quantum move of Doug. And yeah, the queen back to d1 in this example that Chris has shown would show us whether there is actually a rook there. Has the castling move happened or not? It would collapse the that situation where the pieces are entangled. And we are back to the game. So many circles now. So the king was the move, the king to the corner and king to c1. That was the first quantum move in this game between Doug and Trevor. And then Doug went on to make another quantum move that's splitting his knight. So the knight is either still back on the initial square on the edge of the board, or it's a really active piece that could be captured by a pawn. So if the pawn takes it, we shall see what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen with the measurement there, Chris?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get my screen straight.
Sure,
so if the pawn takes what? Oh, the knight on e4.
Yes, so it's split.
Whoa.
It's not sure that there's a knight on that square where the pawn could capture it.
So that's actually an interesting situation with pawns. Pawns can't do split moves, but they can exist in superposition by interacting with other pieces that are in superposition.
I see.
In this situation, that capture is only legal if the knight is actually there. So it does what you call a capture, where on the board that's legal, the pawn will do the capture. On the other one, it will, we call it act as identity, but essentially means it does nothing. So you'll get a pawn that's in superposition on e5 and on f4, and the knight that's on f4 will be gone. There won't be a measurement collapse. So your knight will then still be in superposition on g1, and this pawn will be in superposition on the e5 and f4 squares, and they'll actually be entangled so that their positions depend on each other.
That's fascinating how the pawns don't have quantum powers, but if they interact with a piece that has been split, they can also enter this magical universe where it's not sure whether the pawn has captured the knight or not. Now we have seen a trade. The queens have been traded, and that was a normal move, but this leads to another trade, a check on d8. The rooks are being traded too, so we are entering the endgame stage of the game. Where I wonder if earlier there was any other quantum move possibility, but as you said, it is the pieces, the minor pieces and the heavy pieces and the king, of course, that have quantum power. So we still have a rook, two knights. It's so confusing for me still to say, oh, we have three knights. It looks like white has three knights, but no, those are two knights one is split between two squares. So it's for white, it's one rook and two knights, and black has a rook and a knight and a bishop. It's equal material, and I cannot wait to see whether there will be a capture, another quantum move, or what is the strategy of Doug. Doug has more time. Doug is up to 11 minutes, and Trevor is down to 9.5 minutes.
So we just saw a merge move.
Oh,
There's a couple of comments in chat that I want to.
absolutely. I hope I think it cut off for a moment. If you can just repeat what you said, Chris, I think I lost you for a moment.
Okay. Yeah. So we just saw a merge move from Doug. And actually, I'll talk about that and then I'll go to these comments that I saw in chat. So remember, Doug had a knight in superposition on f4 and g1.
Mm-hmm.
In quantum chess, you can do the opposite of a split move. It's the inverse, and you can select both of those and a single square that they can both reach, and it will try and undo the split to that square. And so he did a merge move from f4 and g1 to e2, and that's why you have the knight at 100% on e2 now.
Mm-hmm. I see. I realize that with my layout, the viewers cannot see the time, so I'm gonna try to add that to our screen while you respond to some of the questions. You said that there were a couple of interesting questions by our viewers, so I let you address them.
Right. One of them, let me try and find them again. It was Estrazix, I think. He had a question about measurement or an observation. Yeah, so if I understand correctly, measurement is made when two pieces end up on the same square. So yes, that's correct. If it's two different types of pieces, the type and color, and they try and occupy the same square, it will force a measurement so that the game can always uniquely determine what type of piece is on that square. It won't always be a full collapse where everything is determined. It just tries to answer the question, is this square a knight or is this square a bishop? Something like that. So it tries to also preserve superposition through that measurement. The other one was about pawn moves, whether you could put a pawn in superposition on the first, like the double step, where you moving 2 steps forward with your pawn. And yes, if there is a piece in superposition on that first square in front of the pawn, and you move your pawn 2 steps forward, that will put your pawn in superposition and create an entangled state between those pieces.
So many interesting questions. Guys, keep up the great work in the chat too, because I know that for most of you, including myself, this is brand new. So feel free to ask any question. There's no question that doesn't deserve to be answered. It doesn't matter if you feel like you don't know what's going on. Feel free to ask so that we can address those questions too, and you will understand more what's going on in the games.
Please do. The more questions you ask, the more content we have to talk about. So
absolutely.
We do have another king split. So
oh, okay. So now the king could be on 3 possible squares.
Yeah. So he split from c1 to c2 and d2. So this king exists on all 3. You can see that the probability of finding it on c2 or d2 is about 25%. It's still about 50% on a1. If I right click on one of these, you can see the entanglement relationship. So you can see this outer bar isn't fully one color or another. That's because there is a universe where it's not in either of these squares. So you can't uniquely say, like, if I find that the king is not here, then it is also not here, or the opposite relationship, because there's a universe where it's not on either.
Interesting. It's getting more and more complex with the King of Dog, and I guess he's doing it because it's more difficult to be able to win the game. You need to capture the king to win the game, and if there are so many question marks around where is the king, it's very difficult to figure it out and capture it. So I guess he's using the quantum moves in the best possible way, making it very uncertain for Trevor to track down where can he hunt down the king and how can he win the game.
Yeah, it's one of the more popular strategies. My hope, though, is that as more people play this and become more skilled at actually using the quantum moves, we might see some strategies that involve interference and things like splitting your piece up a whole bunch, but only to merge it together into a different position on the board that's very strong or something like that. There are actual situations where you can do multiple splits onto the same square and achieve the same effect as a merge because of interference.
I see. I just wanted to add that now we have the clocks also on the screen, so that's below the webcams. You have Doug on the left side and Trevor on the right side. It's the best I could do on the go. So I hope that it's visible enough. This is the time left for both players. There's increment, but it's not too much time. So time pressure is approaching.
Yeah. And we are also, 13 minutes out from the agreed on hour time limit. So
true. Can you remind the viewers what happens when the hour is up? The hour we have for each match.
So we have a hard limit of 1 hour for each match, and in the case of reaching that hour or an agreed upon draw, or even a forced draw via the 50 move rule, there is a version of that in the game. We will decide the outcome based on a king face-off run on actual quantum hardware.
What is a king face-off like? And what does it mean that we can run it on an actual quantum computer?
So it's going to be two kings that are set up in sandbox mode. One of them will split. The other will capture one half of that king. And then the other half of the king that's left over will try and recapture the full king. And it's a 50-50 toss-up whether it wins or not. But we can actually connect the sandbox mode. I have a special build of sandbox mode that can connect to Google's quantum computer and run it as an algorithm on a quantum computer on their Rainbow chip that is housed in Santa Barbara. So
that all sounds very high-tech, that we're gonna, in case there's a tie or in case we don't get to finish the game in time, in case the 1 hour is up, we're gonna know the face of this match thanks to a supercomputer, a quantum computer.
So we have even more splits now. Doug's going superposition king now.
It's everywhere. It could be on A2, B1, C2, D2, all the squares with the pink around it. That's the split king. It's split between 4 squares in this moment. Do you think he will split it even further? He's gonna go for 6, 7 squares. Well, I guess it's always... How many would be... so every time he makes a move, he can split again. He could keep splitting it into 2.
So one thing that might be interesting to see, let me just say that this version of the game is still technically considered a beta version. There are still known bugs in it that we're working on. One bug that we've seen is if you split enough, you actually run into the hard-coded floating point precision, where the computer can't physically represent probabilities lower than that. And then every time you split, you just get a 0. So there is a known counter to what is called the infinite king run, where you just keep splitting your king over and over and over, and your opponent might never be able to chase you down. There are a couple possible counters, but at least one is if you just keep capturing a piece of that king over and over and over, you hit the floating point precision hard threshold, and then they just kind of split themselves out of existence.
Split themselves out of existence.
Yes.
It's gonna be wild if that ends up happening. What do you think is Doug's strategy? The strategy here with the white pieces, Doug has been splitting his king in this past couple of moves. Do you think it's a good idea to keep doing that? To keep splitting the king? Or will he start splitting other pieces as well? Will he go for another quantum move with a different piece, or he's gonna stick to the king?
So I think he's kind of going for 2 strategies, like a twofold strategy here. One is to make it nearly impossible for him to lose, at least in the 1 hour hard time limit.
Yeah.
And then to also try and continue playing a skillful game with his other pieces. So he might keep splitting his king a little bit more. I think he's actually maybe going for the king face-off outcome. It'd be interesting to see, but we did just see him move his knight to a better square, so he might also just go for the win if he sees an opportunity.
I see. And as for Trevor, we still are waiting for him to use the magical powers of quantum computing. So far, he has been treating this as a traditional game. All of his moves were traditional chess moves. Do you think that he's waiting for a special moment, or is it that he's still just trying to figure out the differences between traditional chess and quantum chess? He's not sure when to use the quantum move.
It's hard to say because, like I said, we have seen strong chess players tend to stick with what they know and play it traditionally. But like I said, he has been in the Discord practicing with some of the players there. So maybe he's come up with some end game quantum strategy that we might see him pull out, or he might just stick to traditional, and this game will go to a king face-off where he could lose.
I cannot wait to see the king face-off, but I also am curious whether in the remaining time Trevor will go for a quantum move. He jumps to b3. I was also wondering after that knight jump. So this is a move. The last move of Trevor is attacking potentially one of the king's one of the king positions, and Doug immediately moves the king away. So it's not sure that the king was there being attacked by the black knight, but to make sure that his king will not be captured, he moves it back.
Yes. So he might have also been trying to bait Doug into making a mistake and trying to capture on b3. Thinking that, no, my king's in superposition, I can try and capture with one piece of that. But that would force a measurement that would collapse his king to be definitely on b3 if it worked, and which he would then lose the game. But
I see. That's fascinating though. So Trevor hasn't been making quantum moves, but he has taken into account that if one of the kings were to capture his knight, that would force a measurement, and then he would know for sure where the king is.
Yes. So Doug didn't fall for the trap, though. He split his king again. So
there are 5 possible squares where the white king is. I think now Trevor is trying to use the rook as well to somehow get to the king. I believe he's thinking to bring that rook to the open file where it would possibly give a check. As you said, check doesn't work the same way in quantum chess because you can leave your king in check. It's the king capture that matters. So it would threaten to capture the king. I think that's what he's considering, to bring that rook over to the d file, and that would possibly capture the king if it's on d1. But if it's not on d1, he's gonna end up losing the rook on that square.
Yeah.
Oh, rook to h1 as a traditional move, being guarded by the knight on g3. I would assume Trevor wants to keep that rook on the board and give this check. In traditional chess, it would be a check. In quantum chess, we shall see whether the king is on d1 at all.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's something... So there is something interesting that I think Trevor could do here with a quantum move of his knight on b3.
What do you think that move would be?
If he split the b3 knight to d2 and a1, then he got a threat on both the b1 part of the king and the c2 part of the king.
Yes.
And if it works, he's guaranteed to at least take part of Doug's king.
I like it. Do you think he will find it? And first of all, now Doug will need to respond to this rook move, but he's running out of squares. The d1 king doesn't have a square where it would not be tagged if it's on d1. So now the question for Doug, is the king on d1?
I'm curious how he'll respond to this, yes.
I think this is such a difficult moment because he's either losing now and the king, if it's on d1, it will be captured. But if it's not on d1, he might end up winning the rook or a knight, because if Trevor will want to figure out whether the king is on that square or not, he will have to move his piece to that square. This is fascinating, guys. We are about to see a critical, absolutely critical moment. Where will the king go? And is the king on D1? Is it on C2? Is it on A2? Where is the white king? Doug's king is much like Schrodinger's cat in this very moment. I feel like we are about to know. Is it dead or is it alive?
So we did start their game at 10:12.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the hard 1 hour limit goes until 10:12.
So we give them more time to finish the game. It's true that we started a bit later. On my end, I still had to fix a couple of things, but luckily everything is running now. Guys, I'm producing the show, and I have a boomer count on my chat on my channel here on Twitch. If you use the exclamation mark boomer, that's because I constantly am booming. I misclick. I don't know how to capture the screen. I don't know how to crop things, and here I am trying to produce the show. So that's why we started a bit later, but now the cameras are on screen, the players are with us, and we cannot wait to see where the king of white is. Doug is spending a lot of time. The times are down there. 3 minutes left for Doug.
Yeah. He might lose on time, and then we just don't even get to see the standoff.
Oh no, that would be terrible. No. Someone should call him and tell him, Doug, your time is running out.
Yeah, that's one of the features we've had requested is some sort of warning when you're getting low on time. So.
But if they have chess experience, I'm sure they are used to that too, that they need to keep track of their clock and they need to keep looking. He doesn't move the king away from D1 because he didn't really have a good square for it. And now, what do you think will happen, Chris? Will we see Trevor going to D1 to figure out whether the king is on D1? Will he play that rook move?
I think he will, but it's not going to force a measurement.
Not yet, exactly.
Yeah. It will eat at least some portion of Doug's king, so there will be a universe in the superposition where the king has been captured.
But only in one universe.
Then he has to figure out a way to collapse down to that universe and make that the only possibility. So
I cannot wait to see if that's the move that Trevor will go for, or maybe the knight jump, because that was interesting too, how you mentioned that if the knight is being split, that could attack two other potential king squares if you split it between the corner A1 or D2.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting move. I would probably play that move. One of the counters to the infinite king run, aside from this floating point precision, is to sort of lock the king in so it just can't split anymore.
Oh, if you lock it in, it cannot split anymore. Trevor, by the way, has pushed the pawn. He's still waiting for that magical moment when he's going to use his quantum powers. So far, he's going for the traditional pawn push, which attacks a traditional knight on g3. So it's a strong move. We shall see how Doug reacts. I guess he could capture the pawn and then take it with the knight as well. There could be multiple trades, and it would be winning one of the pawns of Trevor. But the pawn doesn't matter too much if the king will be captured. Oh, Doug decides to simply move the knight to the central square, to e4.
So one of the things Trevor might want to do here, if he wants to kind of box Doug in, is to split his rook from d8 to d2 and d3. And then Doug's running out of room to be able to split his king up. And it will help avoid that infinite king run.
I see. Trevor decides to push g3. He really wants to create a passed pawn, so the pawns don't have quantum powers. But if the pawn promotes to a queen, that will have quantum powers.
Yeah.
Let's see. And what do you guys predict? I'm keeping an eye on the chat as usual. Chris also has it up on his screen. What do you think will happen? What is your prediction for this game? We are down to the final minutes between Doug and Trevor, the first match of the quarterfinals in the first ever Quantum Chess Tournament. Who do you think will win? Is it going to be Doug? Is it Trevor? Who are you rooting for?
So Allard says quantum promotion. Yes, you can have some form of quantum promotion if you have a pawn that is in superposition by interacting with something else, and you promote that, then you get your promotion piece, queen, be it a queen or whatever you want to promote to, in the same superposition. So. Oh, Doug's running really low on time now.
Very low on time. So there's an increment per move, but he has to speed up. He's down to his final 2 minutes. And in the meantime, Trevor is busy creating this passed pawn that could later move to f3, f2, and attack possibly a king on e1. It's happening. The pawn is being pushed to f3. The knight is hanging, and next move could be f2. Will that be attacking a king? Is there anything on e1?
We might find out.
We can soon figure out.
Promotion by attacking that little piece of the king.
Imagine if he pushes the pawn again and then captures that potential king and promotes with that king capture. What a unique move.
Yeah. This is opening up more room for the king to be able to run away, though.
True. f2 is on the board, so this might be or may not be attacking a king on e1. We don't know if the king is on e1. Doug moves away, stepping in front of the pawn so that promotion is prevented for now. And Trevor still hasn't played that rook move. That rook move has been in the air for the past couple of moves. That rook move that would show some of the truth.
I would have played it by now.
You think
because
so?
Not only does it capture part of the king, it also threatens 2 other pieces of the king, and Doug can only save one of those.
True, but maybe he's afraid that if the king is not on d1 but on c2, that other king would capture his rook, and then his rook is gone forever. But we would not figure it out. Would we figure it out then if white wants to capture the rook?
So if white wanted to capture the rook, it would measure c2 and say, is the king here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the answer is yes, then it collapses everything down because the king is only there. If the answer is no, then the other parts of the king that are left over would increase in probability.
I see.
Now that rook then has more of a king that it can capture on its follow-up.
Mm-hmm. I see that Trevor is very sneaky on the chessboard, but also with his camera positioning. So I'm gonna make sure that we can see his face again, because he keeps sliding out of our camera. But I'm gonna fix this, guys. I have magical powers and I can crop that camera better. Let's try. Oh, he's back. He's back on screen.
I'm going
It
to warn the
happens.
players that they are 7 minutes to the hard cutoff.
Yeah, definitely tell them, because that will be a unique moment if we get to see the result of the match based on that supercomputer, the quantum computer we have now access to for today's event. It will be a special moment, but I don't know if the players want that. I don't know if they want to try their luck in that way, or will they try to win the game in the remaining few minutes?
Yeah. We'll see. And I can't decide which outcome I want. It would be interesting to see how this actually played out to the end, but we've got to get the other players in. So, and I do want to see the first king face-off on Quantum Hardware. So,
me too. I want to see both. I want to see where the king is. I'm so curious where the king of Doug is. On which square is he hiding the king? I need to know. Like, we will not be able to go to sleep without knowing that information.
Oh, we did get the capture.
Okay, the rook is on d1. The rook is on d1. Will Doug try to capture the rook, so then we figure out if there's a king on c2 or not?
Let's see. He's low on time, so he's got to make that decision soon.
What do you think he will do?
I think he's going to play for the 1 hour limit and see hardware.
Really?
I think so.
Instead of risking where his king is.
I think so. But who knows? Maybe he'll surprise me.
So how much time do they have left until that measurement of the quantum computer would happen?
Just under 5 minutes.
Just under 5 minutes. He doesn't have the time to wait those 5 minutes. Oh, and he's standing up. I hope he'll be back within the next few seconds, because I wouldn't like to see him lose on time.
Yeah.
He did not try to capture the rook. What's gonna happen next? He simply took that moment to place the rook on f6, but not try to capture the black rook on d1. And now the black rook could try to take on b1 or f1 to see if there's a king on those squares.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen?
Okay.
Trevor has made his first quantum move. It's the first quantum move by Trevor, splitting the rook.
So, this is actually not a split move.
It's not?
This was a standard move that
Oh,
entangled his rook with Doug's king.
I see. I got so excited that finally Trevor is using his magical powers, his quantum powers, but it's a normal move. It depends on the king whether it got across to the corner or not.
Right. Now, what's interesting here is now he can use his rook on a1 to measure essentially the b1 king while also trying to capture the a2 king. So in essence, he could take both of those out of the game in one turn.
Wow. That's huge. That's huge because he's increasing his percentage, the probability that he's actually finding the square where the king is. Do you think it's gonna happen now? Will we see that measurement and figuring out, will Trevor find the square in which the king is? Is it on a2, b1, c2, f1, or was it on d1 and it's already gone?
Yeah. Now, if he really wants to try and end this game, he'll try and figure out a way to get rid of the king portions that are on c2 and f1 before he does this measurement on a2.
That would be your tip, pro tip.
That would be my tip.
Measure the one on f1. Let's see if Trevor does that. What was that move? Wait, did he?
I think he
went back to d1. Is
okay,
that?
he just did a standard move from a1 to d1. And because it's quantum, that was basically the inverse of what he had done before. And the b1 king didn't have any effect on making the outcome different, so it sort of acts like a merge.
It's another merging move. Why do you think he wouldn't try to capture one of the split kings? Now there's more of them. Doug is multiplying his king.
Well, we're just under 2 minutes to the hard cutoff, so
I want to know where the king is. Doug, you cannot leave us with the suspense. You need to tell us, Doug, where is your king? The problem is even Doug will not know. He cannot know with certainty on which square his king is. Okay, there's now another rook move into the corner, attacking a2 and f1 at the same time. There was a king there, and another check. Wait a second, but Trevor hasn't made a quantum move with his king, so his king for sure is where we see it.
Right.
It's being chased.
It is. One interesting thing, Trevor used an entangling move to capture the king on a1, which also took out whatever king was in between, because the only way you could capture on a1 is if that other piece of the king isn't there.
I see. So basically Doug is still much in the game with those 3 possible squares where his king could be right now.
But I think we're going to hit the cutoff. We're just under a minute.
Uh-oh. The final few seconds of the game. I feel like this is a movie I need to watch. I need to know where the king is.
Trevor's trying to end it quickly, but I don't think we're gonna get to see it.
Trevor's really going for that F1 square now. Back on the back rank to try to figure out whether the White King is on F1 or not. What's gonna happen, guys? Will we see? Will we see the quantum computer deciding the fate of these two players? Who's gonna move on to the next stage? What will be the fate of this match?
Well, and there it's time.
The king could be anywhere. Look at Doug. What a relief. His king has escaped.
There's the 1 hour time limit, guys. So we're going to the quantum computer.
Oh, I'm gonna make sure. Oh, that I don't have Chris on both audios. But this is it. This is
Right.
the moment when we're gonna figure out who is moving on to the next stage of the quarterfinals. Is it Doug or is it Trevor? And we will never know where the king is. Doug has split his king into so many squares that we still don't know where is it. We still don't know where is it. Chris, tell us about what's gonna happen in the next moment. How will we know who is moving on to the next stage? What a relief by both players. I think they are just happy to have survived their first ever quantum chess tournament game. Chris, I hope I have you with me.
Sorry, I was just trying to get the players set up. All right, so I am going to switch us over to the quantum computer.
Sure. Big moment here.
Let me switch my view real quick so you can see the whole setup and everything.
Sure. I'm gonna fix the camera of Trevor too in the meantime. He moved back to where he was sitting before. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see who's gonna move on to the next stage. I feel like they both deserve it. They were fighting so well. Doug splitting the kings, Trevor trying to hunt down the king. And now this is gonna be a king-off. A king-off between Doug and Trevor.
Okay, so we have to decide which player takes the white king and which player takes the black king. So I'm actually going to let Trevor decide, since he had captured most of Doug's king and his king was still 100%. So
sure.
Let me go talk to the players real quick.
Sure, take your time. This is the king of, guys. It's happening with the quantum computer that we have access to. The quantum computer will decide. Basically, this is the quantum way of a coin flip. Exactly. It's not a traditional coin flip. It is a quantum coin flip, a king of. And whose king will capture whose king? It is Trevor who will pick the color. Let's see which one he chooses. Let's see. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. What do you guys think will happen? Which king will be the one that lives on and moves on to the next stage of our quantum chess tournament? This is the first ever quantum chess tournament. This is the first ever tournament and broadcast at the same time. A few years ago, I got to know Chris and the team behind Quantum Chess. That was at the beginning of 2016. That's the first time I tried the game, and I find it fascinating. I still don't fully understand all the mechanism behind it, because obviously my knowledge in science and computing is below zero at this stage, but I'm fascinated by this world. I feel like the pieces have truly magical powers. What do you guys think? What do you think, and what will happen with the king of? Chris is muted because he's talking to the players. He'll be back with us in a moment. He just needs to ask the players who is going to take which color. I think Trevor will be the one who decides which king he wants to take, the white king or the black king. Okay. Good luck, good luck.
So Trevor has chosen the white king.
Okay.
Let me just make sure the server is up and running. Yep, we're good. Okay, so we're going to split the black king. The white king's going to capture one half of it, and then the other half of the black king is going to capture back, which is going to force a measurement, and we'll be left with either the white king left over or the black king left over.
So Trevor has chosen the white king, was it?
Yes.
And if the white king stays alive, Trevor moves on to the next stage. If the black king stays alive, Doug moves on to the next stage of the tournament.
Yes.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait.
Here we go. Here's the first split. Now, there is some lag because it's communicating with the server and it takes a little while to run. we should see the result of the split after a few seconds.
We will be patiently waiting for the quantum computer to send the message back to us.
Sorry, it looks like the server actually isn't connected, so I'm going to have to reboot that real quick.
Sure,
Sorry.
take your time. No worries.
Technical difficulties, new hardware stuff, so...
It's totally fine. I can also take it off from the screen in the meantime if you need to reboot it, Chris.
Let's see.
We have the program up and running again. The two kings I can still see.
There. So, okay. Let me just reboot the connection server.
I'm really excited about this moment, and I can't wait to see who is moving on to the next stage. I still will be thinking in the back of my mind, where is Doug's king? Doug's king could be anywhere at this stage, and we will never know. Doug, where is your king? I don't know if Doug can hear us in this moment. I don't know if he's watching the stream. But the problem is, I guess I could ask Doug where he thinks his king is, but we will not know with certainty.
All right. Looks like the server's working now. So I'm going to try and split this king to E5 and E4. And it sent off the request to the server. There you go. So we have the split.
All right, the first split.
Capture. Now, one thing to know when running on quantum hardware is it's still very new technology. There are errors, so we might not see perfect like 50% or anything like that. In fact, earlier I was getting some really weird probabilities. So like right here.
What does this mean, Chris? What does it mean?
So it's, like I said, new technology, and that's actually one of the things that is the biggest problem with quantum computing right now that we're trying to overcome is how to overcome errors on these qubits when they interact. So the actual probabilities that the quantum computer returned for this move is 94% for the white king and 48% for the black king. So we'll try this recapture now, where the E4 king tries to capture the E5 king, and if the white king is there, then Trevor wins. If the black king is there, then Doug wins.
Let's see. I'm nervous. I might be more nervous than the players at this stage.
And neither. Okay,
What?
We'll try that again.
Where are the kings?
So there's your errors for you. We're gonna try it one more time.
All right. That was because we want to make sure everyone is on the edge of their seats and they are paying attention to this moment when we're gonna figure out, is it Doug or is it Trevor who moves on to the next stage?
So I actually tested this a bunch first, and I never got a neither. So that's interesting.
It means that the computer wants both of them to move on. I think the computer feels like they both deserve it.
It might. Let's try it again. Hopefully we don't get a neither this time.
Let's see. And it's a black king!
With a very tiny amount of probability.
tiny amount of probability. But that means it's Doug's king.
Doug moves on.
Congratulations to Doug, but also congratulations to Trevor for how well he fought, because I thought he was on track, almost figuring out where the king of Doug was. So he almost won the end of that quantum chess game, but there were so many squares to which Doug split his king that you had to go and keep hunting down those squares too. Thanks so much to both players. Chris will let them know about the result in this moment. That's why you can't hear him. He's letting them know. Doug is celebrating. All the best to both of them. Doug will move on to the semifinals. You will see him back during the Quantum Computing Conference, the Q2B conference. That's from December the 8th. He will be playing again in the semis. And we hope that Trevor will try his hand again at quantum chess in the future, because he was more conservative about making quantum moves, but he did use that strategy for figuring out where the king is. So that was very smart when he brought the rook down to the edge of the board to try to capture one of the possible king positions. That there were too many. There were so many. And on that note, I think we will be getting ready now for the next game. Chris, let us know what the
Yes.
players have said. I saw Doc celebrating there.
Yeah, they thought it was funny that there was a zero kings. So we're getting the next players up in the
Awesome, awesome.
call, so we
Oh, they
can-
are already here. Excellent. I'm just
Yes.
gonna swap the
Nico,
names.
if you could mute your mic, please.
Yeah, I think we are getting ready for the next match. Let me make sure I have also the right names on the screen. It's now the second match of the quarterfinals. We're gonna have Bern Norman and Nico Gresiak joining us in a moment. Let me see if I get the right cameras from the players so that you can see both Nico and Bern. I see one of them, but I'm not sure if the camera's in the right place because so far... Oh, that's Nico. So Nico has taken Bern's camera. In the meantime, while we wait for Bern, I think we can simply switch to this other scene where we are on full screen. It's Chris and I. Chris is making sure that both players are here, that they are ready to go. Oh, Bern has just joined, so I guess that's time for me to make sure that the layout is fine and I'm cropping the right cameras. I'm just gonna need Chris to leave that call and join back again if he could. I'm gonna let him know once he's back with us because it has made an interesting swap. Chris, would you be able to leave that Google call for a moment and then come back? Because I'm actually capturing your camera, so your camera jumped to where Doug's camera was, and I'll just need you to leave the game call for a moment and come back so that we have everything set. We are ready to go in a moment with the second game, and that means also the cameras are in place now that Chris has joined. He left and joined back again, and the cameras are back into the right places. So we have Mr. Norman and Mr. Gresiak facing each other in the quarterfinals in the second match that we can observe today. There are 4 in total. Let me show you again the brackets so that you know what's going on today. This is the first ever Quantum Chess tournament, and we have some really impressive field here, ladies and gentlemen. All of these prestigious players, some of them with a lot of chess experience when it comes to traditional chess. Others basically said their chess experience is that they have just watched The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. So there's different backgrounds when it comes to chess, but they are all part of the Quantum Computing Conference that's gonna be starting on December the 8th. So this is a pre-event to the Quantum Computing Conference, and the semis and the finals will be during the conference as part of the conference. As you see, the finals on December the 8th, the semifinals on December the 8th and the final on December the 9th. It will be hosted live again, but this time for the semis and the finals, we're gonna move over to the conference and their virtual platform. So if you guys want to see the semis and the finals, I will be there on the virtual platform of the Q2B Quantum Computing Conference. As I said, it's the first ever quantum computing conference I'm taking part of. I don't know how I got invited, because clearly my credentials are lacking in one field more than the other, but I'm happy to be part of the first ever quantum chess tournament as the host. How's everyone doing, and what do you think so far of the game? Let me know in the chat. Let me know what do you think so far. Who are you rooting for in this next matchup? Yamato, good to see you. Not even quantum physicists can figure out Zoom. Yeah, Zoom is a huge mystery, more mysterious than quantum physics. Let me know, Chris, if you are back.
On server backend stuff. We had
Sure,
to restart the server, so
sure, take
we're
your time.
getting them up and going now, it looks like.
Sure. I'm just gonna check if I have a different layover for the boards. Now it's cutting the coordinates. I'm just gonna make sure it's neat on the screen. I don't know what changed.
Let me make sure I'm on the right one.
Oh, okay. It might be a different one. If not, I can adjust it. If not, sure. So we're gonna move over to the multiplayer.
So I'm going to. Oh, hang on. Okay, we're going to need a few minutes. I guess we're having some server issues.
All right, sure, take your time, and in the meantime we can address the rest of the questions about the event.
Yeah.
I'm gonna...
Okay, let me just tell the players that we need to hold on for a few minutes.
Sure,
Then
sure.
questions.
If you can become a GM in this type of game, Yamato, absolutely. I'm sure you're a big brain. I'm sure you're a big brain for quantum computing too. So definitely, I would think all of you have a really good chance. Anyone but me. I can't even add up two numbers. I cannot add up 2-digit numbers at this stage. That's my mathematical knowledge. And here I am at a quantum computing conference. Part of the conference, we are hosting the quantum chess tournament.
All right, so we have an engineer restarting the server right now. We can answer a bunch of questions. I can show off stuff in sandbox mode. I could do more demonstrations on hardware actually if you want to.
Sure,
Fill this time with...
sure. Since a couple of people haven't been here at the start, could you break down again the essentials of quantum chess? What is quantum chess?
Yeah, sure. In fact, you know what? Let me do it with examples.
Excellent.
Okay, let's switch over cameras to the sandbox mode, and I will show some examples of moves.
Sure.
All right. So, quantum chess is essentially like regular chess. All the pieces move the same as regular chess pieces. The biggest difference is you can now split all of your pieces that aren't pawns. And what that does, it creates a superposition of boards where the piece can exist on multiple positions at one time. So
will you show us an example of that split position of the pieces?
So here is sandbox mode. What I could do is, like, normally this knight here on b1 could move to a3 or to c3. In quantum chess, you can split to occupy both. Now, I have this running on the quantum computer right now, so there is some lag, but you'll see the result of that. So now you see a knight on a3 and a knight on c3. So there's two possible boards in this superposition. One it's on a3, one it's on c3. Another thing you can do is move through pieces that are in superposition. So like
through pieces.
Yes. So this pawn on c2 normally would be able to move to c4, but there might be a knight in the way blocking it.
And we don't know if the knight is there or not.
Right. And so what the move actually does is it acts on all of the possible boards. And on the ones where the move is legal, it does it. If the ones where the move is not legal, then it just acts as an identity operator. It does nothing. So you can see now you have a pawn in superposition. Now, normally this should be a 50% split. Because it's on a quantum computer right now, there are errors because the quantum computing hardware is still very new. And so you see that we didn't quite get a 50% split.
There's a more probability for the knight on c3. We see what I called liquid. The first time, remember, Chris, the first time I played quantum chess, I was like, okay, this looks like this. It's a bottle and there's liquid in the bottle that shows the percentage.
Yeah. So, so the probability is shown with this little outer ring, how much it's filled. So another effect in the game that is important is measurement. So when two different types of pieces try to occupy the same square, it'll force a measurement to determine which one can be there. So if I tried to move, say, this queen from d1 to d2, this pawn might be in the way or it might not be. So it's going to measure I said d2, c2. So it's going to measure the c2 square to determine if the pawn is there. So if we do that move, we'll see what the outcome is on the quantum computer, and it's going to collapse the superposition a bit, and some pieces might disappear or lower in probability. This one usually takes a little bit longer. Okay, so...
What does that mean, Chris? Break it down. What has just happened with that queen move?
So it found that the c2 pawn was not there, which means the queen could move there. Now, what that also means is that the C2 pawn probably moved up here. Now, according to the math, the answer is yes, it moved up there. But because we're on a quantum computer, again, we have errors in the qubits. And so we still have a little bit of an error here on this C3 knight, which should have disappeared, which you'll see in game. It's running on the simulator, which has much more accurate math at the moment.
So it would need to disappear, the knight, because the pawn has to be on c4, means that the knight had to jump to a3 and not to c3.
Exactly.
I started understanding it, guys. This feels amazing when you're like, wow, I know why it's happening. I understand this part. It doesn't mean I understand all of it, but I understand this one move.
So we're moving toward better hardware. We're getting better and better error rates, and we have error correction codes that help mitigate the effects of errors and stuff. So quantum chess is actually a pretty interesting use case for beginners getting into quantum computing, because you can start programming on qubits and you have something that you can relate to, where like normally if you're programming on a quantum computer, you need to know stuff like quantum chemistry, which can be very complicated.
Quantum chemistry. As if quantum computing on its own wasn't gonna be complex enough, you also need to know about quantum chemistry.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, there are simple use scenarios that you can program on a quantum computer, like just a single qubit splitting, and then you measure it and it's like flipping a coin and stuff like this. But I think a game like quantum chess helps make things a little more interesting for people getting into it. So I think we might be ready to get up and going with our game now.
Sure. So this is the second match. I'm gonna bring up the bracket one more time to show. This is the first ever quantum chess tournament, and today we are hosting the quarterfinals. The semifinals and the finals will be happening on December the 8th and 9th as part of the Q2B Quantum Computing Conference. So you can still sign up for the conference if you want to be there, either for the semis or the finals or for the conference itself. The rest of the events, there are so many speakers. Take a look at the website and see which event would you like to attend the most. Hopefully you will be there with us for the finals too. We are, I believe, ready to go for this second match of today. Let's see if Bern and Nico are ready as well. I think they were just waiting for the green lights from us. What do you guys think so far? Those of you who are just joining, you're about to see magic on a chessboard. This feels like magic. I know it's science, and science is not supposed to be clarified as magic, but it looks magical when science is at its best. That it's a different universe. It's multiple universes, multiple layers of universes. You're not sure whether the knight is here or there. You don't know. As in the first game, where was Dog's king? He had so many. He had so many kings. The king was everywhere. The king was everywhere, and yet nowhere. We still don't know where Dog's king is. I would love to ask him, but the problem is he doesn't know it either. No one knows until there's a measurement. Yes, in this example...
Right, we're just getting the game up and running.
Sure. Yeah, I was just responding to those asking about this exact position that you were explaining, Chris, that the knight should not be on c3. It's on a3 and the pawn is on c4. That's why the queen to c2 move could happen.
Yeah, but again, because we ran this on Google's quantum computer, and quantum computing hardware is still very, very young and being improved on, we have errors, so we get little probabilities that are left over. So
but it does show just a tiny bit of leftover, which would need to disappear. But it's still a privilege to have access to Google's quantum computers. Of course, we are very happy that we are in this fortunate situation where we can show to you guys how that actual quantum computer works on a quantum chessboard, and how it will decide some of the tiebreakers. Again, there will be a king off in case the game doesn't end within an hour. Let me see if you have any more questions regarding the example or quantum chess in general, and we're gonna be starting the second match in a moment. the quantum chess game itself that you can download from Steam runs on a simulator, so that will not have these
All right. I
errors.
am joining their game now.
Sure. We're gonna take a look at the game as it's kicking off. From our example, we're gonna move on to their game. I wonder who will be the first to make a quantum move in this game, because in the previous matchup we saw Doug splitting his king multiple times, while Trevor went mainly for traditional chess moves but then tried to hunt down the white king. It was interesting to see how his strategy was based on the more traditional chess moves but trying to figure out where the king was and winning the game. Will we see more quantum moves in this next game between Byrne and Nico? What do you think will be the first moment? Who will make the first magical move, the quantum move?
Yeah, sorry.
Take your
We're
time,
still
take your
having
time.
technical difficulties.
No worries.
We had one of the players exit, and so now we have to restart their game again.
Oh, all right. And that happens at traditional chess too. We need to sync up everything, of course. Let me see if you guys have any more questions regarding the event, regarding this example, regarding the next matchup. Nope, and I see you asking about auto skip merge, but I'm gonna have to ask Chris about it, and I think right now he just wants to make sure that both players have access to the game and they are ready to go. So I'm gonna wait for him to come back. And we do have a poll running right now on our Twitch channel. Who will make the first quantum move? Is it gonna be Byrne or is it gonna be Nico? What do you think? Who will make the first quantum move in this next matchup? Quantum physics may be magic, but statistical physics is straight up devilry. I didn't know you can put it that way too. For me, this is all magic. I don't understand much of it, and everything feels like it's pure magic. But science backing it up, obviously.
Okay. Finally got all of the issues worked out.
Amazing.
Servers are running and they are going. So we have the game up on stream now.
Mm-hmm. So again, on the left side, you see the player with the white pieces. Byrne has got the white pieces, Nico the black pieces. We have a poll up running right now on our Twitch channel, Chris, that is about who will make the first quantum move. Is it going to be Byrne or Nico? Nico is winning. There's a higher percentage so far, but not big of a difference. Byrne goes for the first move.
Byrne
the
went
first.
quantum.
Exactly.
Instant.
So yeah, our poll is a bit too slow. I didn't think it was gonna be a move too. He split his
That was
bishops.
quick. So we do have some info on them. Nico is an associate theoretical physicist from IonQ. He played chess competitively from age 6 until 13 in Poland.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was thinking that sounds like a Polish surname to me, and it makes it difficult to pronounce. I hope I didn't butcher his surname. Gresiak, I think. I've been to Poland a couple of times. It's a beautiful country. Beautiful country. Please keep going, Chris. You have access to all the information on the players.
Yeah, and then Byrne is a strategic planning manager for Honeywell Quantum Solutions. Not a whole lot of past chess experience, except watching the Queen's Gambit, he says.
He did watch the Queen's Gambit. He
Yes.
did.
Yeah, so he says, easily excitable by all things science.
I love that part of his description, and I think he also has some culinary experiments in the kitchen. He does like to cook, and also has been experimenting with making. Did I read that correctly? I think I have his bio here as well. Culinary challenges in the kitchen, fermentation, and experiments with making his own kombucha and kefir.
So we had the quantum move. And then we had captures, and now...
Oh, I missed that very exciting moment.
Missed it
The bishop
too.
is gone! The bishop is gone! Chris, what has happened? The bishop was on c4, that means.
So it looks like the bishop that was on c4 was captured by the d5 pawn. And then I guess it's hard to tell from the move string. I completely missed the move, so
The bishop is gone, so it was captured by the pawn. I believe that means that the bishop was on c4. Let me just explain to all the new viewers, over 500 of you joining from the channel of Anna Kramling. Thank you so much for coming over.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna, for the support. This is the first ever Quantum Chess tournament. We are hosting here the quarterfinals of the first ever Quantum Chess tournament. My co-host is the real host here. Chris Cantwell is the creator of this wonderful game where the chess pieces, have quantum powers. Chris, for all the newcomers just joining, can you again break down what is quantum chess?
Yeah, so quantum chess is like regular chess. The pieces move with the same movement patterns. The key difference is that you can do a split move with anything that isn't a pawn that puts it in superposition on two different squares. And so all of the pieces move according to the rules of quantum mechanics. You can essentially run this on a quantum computer, which if you were here earlier, you saw. We will do it again, so stick around and you'll be able to see it again. I did figure out what happened to the bishop.
Sure, would you like to show us what happened to the bishop there?
Yes, let me pull up a sandbox mode and I can recreate that. So if we have a bishop...
If you haven't seen it, but those of you who have just joined us, there was a really curious moment in this game between Byrne and Nico, where Byrne split his bishop between two squares. He had a light squared bishop and he moved it both to c4 and d3 at the same time, splitting the bishop between those two squares, so you are not certain on which square the bishop is. Then Nico pushed his pawn to attack the possible bishop position on c4, and now the bishop is gone. So I'm assuming the bishop was actually on c4.
Yes, so what happened? So if we have our bishop split...
Yeah, this
like
is going to be an example of the bishop split. Yeah?
And then we had a pawn capture to here.
Yes.
This creates an entangled state between the pawn and the bishop, and you can tell this by right-clicking. So you see how these rings are full and different colored here?
Mm-hmm.
It means that if we measure and find that this pawn is here, then this bishop definitely isn't. And so the follow-up move was to try and capture with this pawn to the d4 square, which forces a measurement of this pawn.
Mm-hmm.
And he found the opposite. So these outcomes are random. He got lucky with the opposite outcome, and I'll do it a few times so we can see that. Hopefully not 15 times like I did.
So depending on the moment, depending on what the universe has for you, it's either that the bishop is still alive or the bishop has been captured. In this case, the bishop has been captured.
So here is that result. He tried this capture. It forced a measurement of this pawn, which found that this pawn isn't here, which means that that bishop isn't there because it was over here and was captured. But it also now means that that pawn can't perform this diagonal move because there's nothing there to capture.
True. There's a certainty that the bishop is not on the other square.
Yeah, so essentially he forced a measurement to measure his opponent's bishop out of existence.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what happened in the game since between Byrne and Nico. Nico having a bishop up, but in quantum chess anything can happen. I think a piece up in quantum chess is way less of an advantage because once you start splitting your pieces, it's just becomes really chaotic to know where each piece is, especially the king. So once again, emphasis on this variant, this new game basically of chess is not about giving checkmate, it's about capturing the king, and you can only capture the king if you find where it is. For now, the white king and the black king are 100% on g1 and g8, but once you split the king, it's gonna become really difficult to figure out where each piece is standing.
We've still only had that initial split, so since then both players have been playing with just your standard classical moves.
Mm-hmm. And they both still have about 20 minutes. This is a rapid time control with increment per move. But if there's no result after an hour of play, we're gonna have the quantum computer king off to decide who's gonna move on to the next stage of our tournament.
Yep. Be interesting to see if they get there or if they resolve this game before.
What do you think? What's your prediction, Chris?
So, with Burn, I've found that players that tend to not have as much chess experience have a much higher rate of finishing games in a timely manner, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So it very well could end before we hit that 1 hour.
I see. And also, hopefully, there will be more quantum moves. I love to see the pieces
Yes.
being split. And again, it can happen only with the minor pieces, the heavy pieces, and obviously the king. Pawns cannot make quantum moves, but they can cause entanglement. That was a normal move. I was excited for a moment when I saw the pink appearing on the screen.
Yeah, anytime a piece moves, you get the little probability fill just as a visual effect. But if it goes to 100%, it goes away.
Mm-hmm. I think there was earlier a question. I wish I could recall it about auto skip. I don't know how that applies to which scenario. I'm gonna have to find it because
Yeah. So there is
auto
a
skip
sequence of
merge.
moves that in the community have been dubbed the auto skip merge.
Oh, what does that mean?
Community members, his name is auto skip. So you do a split move and then another standard move with one of those pieces, and then you do another split move, and you get to merge the two.
Mm-hmm.
Just by doing two split moves, which is an interesting use of interference. In fact, I can show it in Sandbox a little bit later if we want.
Yeah, I would be curious to see how that works.
Yeah.
So the community of quantum chess, it means that they have a place to gather and talk to each other. I have been invited to that Discord server. Those of you who want to join, I'm sure if there's a way to post it in the chat, yes. I would love to share the link to the Discord server if you guys are interested in quantum chess and want to be part of their community.
Yeah.
And the current poll on our channel is who is going to win. Let's see. Prediction time. Burn or Nico? Who are you rooting for? It's almost even.
Where do I see these polls?
So if you have the chat, it should be at the top of the chat window.
Yeah.
And you can also vote. You can have an impact on the result, Chris.
I get to vote.
Yes. Yes.
It's actually not as heavily tilted toward Nico as I expected.
Oh, but now it's increasing. Now it's increasing.
I'm going to throw a vote behind Burn. I find that newer players tend to use the quantum more.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's one way to kind of get a lucky outcome against a stronger chess player is to start splitting things and rely on measurement outcomes.
I can't wait to see the next quantum move in the game. And is it going to be Burn again, or will Nico try his first quantum magical powers in action? Will he split a piece now or not after d3?
So let's see. It's Nico's turn. I'm wondering if there's any interesting split moves he could make.
I guess now he will just take that pawn in a traditional way because you don't want to chance whether the pawn disappears from d3 or not, because it's attacking both the white queen and the rook. So you want to make sure it's gone from the board.
Right.
Rook takes d3, attacking the queen. Now, for instance, do you think it would be a good idea for Nico to split the queen in a way that the one stays on the d file and the other moves away from the d file to try to bait Burn into moving the rook down? Would
well,
that...
we did see a split.
He split it. That's the first quantum move by Nico. I was just curious if he will dare to leave a part of the queen on the open file where the rook is attacking it.
So he could have, and that would have been an interesting bait to see if Burn would try and capture half a queen, and is that worth definitely losing your rook?
Mm-hmm.
Some players might say yes. So
I would have loved to see it, but in this way too, it's interesting because we are now not sure whether the queen is on b8 or c8, and it can be further split. We can end up having lots of possible squares for the queen.
Yeah.
What do you think would be a good move here for Byrne? Do you see any quantum moves that would be interesting?
So I've been trying to look. I like to use quantum moves to bait stronger pieces or to try and like pose double threats.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a great one at the moment. So like one thing, he could split his d-file rook to be on d8 and then somewhere else to sort of self-guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is good, actually. So if he did that, and then if Nico follows up with like e8 to d8 to capture half the rook, say.
Yeah.
And then Byrne followed that up with recapturing with whatever rook was left over. Nico's queen is split, so his chances of recapturing on d8 would be much smaller.
Is it the
So that
same
could
though if it's on c8 or b8? So if both queens would have access to that d8 square, does it matter that the queen is split? Because you would need to know which one you pick up, right? So it doesn't matter
Right.
that both queens could take that rook. Is there a way to set that up? Because I feel like this is important to understand, but
Yeah, so
if we could
I'll
set that
set it
rook
up in
move up in sandbox mode, because both queens have access to that square, but you don't know on which square the queen is standing, and you need to move one or the other.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to put the king on there because I think that's what really makes that possibly an interesting move.
Mm-hmm.
So just a moment. It takes me a minute to get set up here.
Sure, take your time. And there's so many interesting questions in the chat. Thank you guys for being so interested in quantum chess. We're going to try to address as many questions as possible. But first we're going to take a look at this example where the queen does have access to that square but may not be able to capture rook if you don't know which square it is coming from.
All right, so we have a partial position here. So you've got your queen in superposition, this rook on a d-file, and some situation like that, right? So if the move was, say that, and then we recaptured here, then we recaptured with this rook, I'm going to do it just to show this outcome. So right now, you've got in chess what would be a back rank checkmate if this queen couldn't recapture, right? Now, an attempted capture by either one of these is only going to have a 50-50 chance of working because it's going to measure the one that's trying to capture. And so if we tried to capture with this one, that time it worked, but that's a 50-50. So
yes,
50%
sometimes it will capture the rook, other times it will not if the queen is not moving from the right square. And then the rook could end up capturing with the queen because now with 100% certainty we know that it's on b8.
Well, the rook could end up capturing the king and win the game.
Oh, the king is more important though. Yes, of course. Oh, that's a huge move then. It's a risky one to place the rook on the back rank, but you're right. It could end up being a winning
just ended
move.
The game right there.
It could end the game immediately. Wow. I was so focusing on the queen, but the king is the one in trouble.
It would have been interesting to see that, but unfortunately we didn't see that play out. So we'll go back to the game now. We still have our queen that is split.
The queen is still split and...
We could still see that.
Yes, it's still a possibility. I guess in this position, Nico will go for the traditional move of capturing the rook with the bishop, and so it's gone now. It is a rook up for black in this moment if white takes that bishop. That's happening. That's the move that has just been played. Material up for Nico, but it's quantum chess, and with split pieces... Okay, he's merging his queens. He did merge the queens. Now it's on b7 for sure.
So I have this handy little. If I hold the control key down, you can kind of see ghost pieces of what was there. So you can see that the queen that was split there merged to b7.
That's a really cool feature. So now that the pieces have been merged, we know with 100% certainty on which square Nico's queen is. The queen is on b7. If you are a rook down, so in traditional chess too, it's a difficult situation to be in. When you are material down, usually it means that your position is losing. What can you do in quantum chess to make it more difficult for the opponent to win and try to magically turn the tables? What would you suggest, Chris?
Lots of splits.
Lots of splits.
Yes. I mean, one thing you can do is just split your king up to make it harder to capture your king. The other thing I like to do is like self-guarding, so you could split your rook to guard itself and bait stronger pieces into trying to capture half of it with crossing your fingers that you can capture back and get lucky. So
I see.
Yeah.
Will we see Byrne going for this strategy? Because he's now a rook down, and that's a tough spot to be in, but I agree with you. That's still the quantum effect in this game. If he starts splitting, now e4 attacks the queen and the knight at the same time. That's a fork in traditional chess. One of the pieces will be captured. You cannot move both at the same time. So Nico is playing very well the traditional chess part, and Byrne has to use the quantum effects in order to try to turn the table somehow.
Yes, unfortunately right here, there's not a lot he can do to save both, even with the quantum stuff. So I saw a question in if all of the states were essentially some version of a bell pair. All of the moves are accomplished with the square roots of I swaps and I swaps. So there's no arbitrary phase rotations, which would give you I think this would give you universal quantum computing in quantum chess, but that was a more technical question.
What if now Byrne would go for a tricky move and split his queen in a way that one would capture the black rook and the other would be another square where it's hanging, and then black has to try to figure out, I guess black would take the one that could be giving check to the king. The ideal situation would be that the queen is hanging on both squares, and if it's giving check on both squares, you need to pick which one you take. And then the universe will decide whether you are making a losing move or winning one, because you end up capturing the king.
Now, there are situations you can do that. Unfortunately, in this one, you wouldn't be able to because you can't split and capture at the same time. So
Nico has just placed the knight on the edge of the board in order to threaten with the queen capture. It's a trade of queens which favors black if you are material up in traditional chess, and I assume also quantum chess. If you are material up, it's beneficial to the side with the extra material to simplify the position, to go for trades, especially exchanging the queens.
Yeah, I would assume so. And Nico, I mean, played competitively, so my guess is that's what he's going to go for.
Now, what if I'm gonna try to bait? I'm gonna try to find bait moves here. If I take on b7 with the white queen, but split it with another capture, taking the knight, could I do that? Would that make sense to try to split my queen between the two captures, and then black has to decide which capture they want to go for?
So to do a split move with the white queen?
Yes, I wanted to split the white queen between the capture of the black queen and the capture of the black knight.
Yeah, so again, you can't capture with a split move.
Oh, I keep forgetting that. I so want to find a way in which it will be like a turning point, and Byrne could also get lucky there. You cannot. So no capture.
Unfortunately.
No capture can be split.
Right. You can capture with a piece that has been split, but only if you're just doing a standard move with that piece.
Okay, I keep forgetting that, and that's such a pity. I felt like I see something and no, it's the opposite. I was gonna make an illegal move. It's not possible.
No, that's probably the most common rule confusion is people always want to try and capture with the split moves.
Yeah.
Now, these rules are still, I mean, subject to debate and could change in the future. One of the most common requested rule changes is to be able to merge and capture at the same time. So at the
Merge and
moment that
capture.
isn't supported, but maybe at some point in the future we will add that.
Again, a couple of traditional moves are being played. The rook was attacking the queen, and the queen steps aside. Maybe now it's Nico who will go for a quantum move. I so want to see that magic happening on the board. I'm thinking whether it would make sense to split his rook, so that one rook would go down to the back rank, attack the queen, and the other, what would make sense too? Maybe split it between d1 and d2. Both are bad moves on their own, but if you split between those two squares, white cannot know on which square the rook is standing. Would that be a good move, Chris, or am I making a really bad suggestion as usual?
No, so I like the suggestion of splitting to d1. I probably
Yeah?
wouldn't put the other half on d2. I would probably put it somewhere else, like
see. Somewhere
maybe
safer.
d3.
Mm-hmm.
That way, if it doesn't go in your favor, you're not automatically being attacked on whatever other half you have.
I see.
But then white would have to choose to try and possibly capture on d1 with a queen, and you could possibly gain a queen for your half rook.
Mm-hmm.
Also threatening the king at the same time. So
this is really exciting. I'm getting more and more confused and more excited about the game at the same time. And yes, it's a lot of material up for Nico, but if a quantum move is used in the right moment by Byrne, I think the tables could turn. So I'm waiting for that moment. I think he should do what you suggested. Start splitting the pieces. Bishop f4, traditional move. He's still waiting for the right moment to use the quantum powers he has.
now, an interesting thing that Byrne could think about doing is splitting his rook onto d2 and e2.
d2
Threatening
and
both
e2.
files at the same time.
Oh, you mean, how do you go to d2 or d2 here and...
The c2 rook onto d2.
Oh,
and
right. I was looking at the black
Yeah.
pieces and I couldn't imagine how do you jump through the knight. But I understand now. You want the white rook to be split between d2 and e2.
Yeah.
I see.
Except with the knight in the way, that's less good.
Mm-hmm.
If the knight wasn't there, I think that would be actually a really interesting move. Because then the Nico would have to decide, does he want to try and capture one half of that rook? And then the other half could try and recapture all the way down on rank 8 and back rank the king.
Yeah, I understand. I think I understand. Oh, I also have just realized that there is a quantum chess category on Twitch already, because I set the stream as chess, because I was assuming... I was assuming there's no quantum chess category, but now I've just found it. So we are moving on to the actual category, quantum chess.
I didn't know there was a quantum chess category. That's cool.
Oh, okay.
What does it take to get a category on Twitch?
I have no idea what does it take, but I would assume a game made it if it has a category on Twitch.
Okay.
That's a kind of a verification that the game is being played, it's popular, it will be streamed. I think that's what it means. So well done, Chris.
All right. So actually, I want to do a split move in this position as white. I want to split the e2 knight or e2 rook to d2 and e3.
Mm-hmm. And if that split happens, tell us why that would be a good idea.
So as black, you can choose to try and capture either of those squares with one of your rooks.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can always recapture with your bishop that is guarding both of those.
Mm-hmm.
So the f4 bishop guards both e3 and e2.
Mm-hmm.
And then that threatens both of the rooks on the 8th rank. So I think that would have been interesting. But now we're in a a bad spot.
This is unfortunately a bad one. Yes, Chris, you noticed that in traditional chess too. This would be bad news when the rook goes down to the back rank, queen and king on the same file. The queen cannot move because the king would be in check. Although, wait a second, this is quantum chess. Can he split the queen? Look at that move! Queen to e1 and e2 at the same time. Oh, Nico captured the king and it was on g1. So the queen was on e2. Measurement.
So we had an entangling attempt at a capture right here. He tried to go through the queen, which would have measured to make sure that the path to the king was free, not blocked by that queen, which it found that the queen was on e2 and successfully captured the rook on g1. So, all right. We have a winner. We don't have to go to the king versus king standoff.
It has finished within the time frame, so the queen was split between the e1 and e2 squares, but Nico went for the measurement, moving the rook to g1, and the queen ended up being not in the way, meaning that this is a win for Nico. He moves on to the semifinals. Would you like to let the players know? Also, I think the only issue, I was gonna say we can have them on the call, but I hear ourselves twice if I use the audio of the other call, unfortunately. So I'm gonna let Chris talk to them, because if I unmute myself to talk to the players, you guys gonna hear me with an echo, and echo is not really a pleasant sound effect. But what a game! That queen split. Maybe if Byrne had used the split pieces, the quantum powers a bit earlier, it could have turned the tables, because as Chris said, when he suggested that rook move, the white rook all the way up to the back rank, that would have been an interesting situation where you either win, you win even more material as black in that position, or you can end up losing your king and the game. This was a really, really interesting game for how sometimes those quantum moves could be used even when you're a rook down. It was a rook down. Eventually, this last black rook move was gonna win even more material, the queen and king on the same file. I think it means that the players are now informed about what's next. It is Nico moving on to
try and get the next players in?
Sure, absolutely. So Nico has moved on to the semifinals, and thanks so much to Byrne for taking part of the event. I'm happy to hear that basically he got interested in chess because of the Queen's Gambit, while Nico had previous chess experience competing in Poland. I'm gonna make sure that we have the next matchup on the screen too. This is gonna be the third match of our quarterfinals. As you can see, we are moving on to this particular match between Mr. Hansen and Mr. Weinberg. I'm gonna show you again the cross table in the meantime. I don't have it updated with the results, but you can see the brackets here, who is moving to which part of the bracket, the semifinals and the final, happening during the dates of the Q2B Quantum Computing Conference. As part of the conference, we're gonna be on the virtual platform of the Practical Quantum Computing Conference Q2B. You can be there too. You can join us. There's a link. If you use the exclamation mark conference, there's a link to how you can join us for the conference to attend the semifinals and the finals of the Quantum Chess Tournament, or to be there for the rest of the talks. There will be many interesting talks that you can attend, and all sorts of events related to quantum computing. But the Quantum Chess Tournament is just one of the many activities during the 3-day conference, the Quantum Computing Conference. Now I'm going to bring back our cameras and this scene, and I believe the players will be joining us shortly for this third match between Ethan and Sean.
They're jumping in pretty quickly here. While we're waiting for them, we had a question in chat about that last scenario, so I set it up in sandbox mode so we could
Amazing. See. Sure, let's take a look, because it was really exciting and it happened so quick. We better take a slow-mo on this.
So we had a scenario like this, where this rook was threatening the king here with the queen in the way, so the queen split. And we had a standard move to try and capture the king. Now, in game, we saw that it forced a measurement on this E1 queen, found that it wasn't there, so that move succeeded and we had a win. But we could have had the opposite outcome like that, where it forces a measurement and finds that the queen is here and blocking the rook from being able to capture the king.
Mm-hmm.
So looks like the other players are jumping into the call now, so I'm going to go get them set up real quick.
Amazing. It's fascinating, guys, how this queen split would have affected whether the king is gonna get captured or not. Well, it did affect it both. Whether the queen is on e1 or e2 makes a whole lot of difference. In one scenario, in one universe, you end up losing the game because the king is captured, and in the other scenario, that rook move would not be possible. I do like your comments, CJ, about just remember, guys, in every quantum chess match that you lose, there's a parallel universe where you actually won. That's the attitude. That's exactly the attitude. Let me see if I have the correct order of the cameras. I think I'm gonna have to ask Chris to leave for a moment again because it mixes up the order of the cameras. It mixes up the order. Or maybe I should... Oh, no. Yeah, Chris knows that if he leaves and joins again, then the cameras will jump back to the right spot. There we go. I think we have it now. Oh, I have the cameras in the wrong order, but other than that, we have the cameras in the right spot. So we have Ethan and Sean mixed up. I'm gonna fix that. In a moment. Thank you for waving to our Twitch audience. I'm gonna make sure that the name cards are on the right spot. Welcome to the show, Ethan and Sean. We are looking forward to your quarterfinals match here in Quantum Chess, in the first ever Quantum Chess tournament. Thank you for taking part of it. Chris, let me know when you are back, and I'm gonna make sure the cameras are in the right spot. So we have the players on the right side, Ethan and Sean, ready to start in a moment their quarterfinals here. First ever quantum match for them, I believe.
Good to go.
Amazing. I'm gonna fix the cameras so that we don't have the names mixed up, and then the layout is ready to go as well. There we go. Now we have it. Now we have it correctly. Ethan on the left side, Sean on the right side. I believe Ethan will be playing with the white pieces.
Yep. And then I will tell them to go ahead and get started.
Sure. Whenever they are ready, we are ready as well.
Okay.
What do you think after these first two games, Chris? Will the players be more ready for a quantum move, especially if they were watching the show earlier, listening to your tips? Do you think that will change the way they play the last two matches? Because they might have been watching the broadcast.
They might have been. Yeah, I don't know. I hope they do. I like seeing the quantum. I think it's fun.
Me too. I'm looking forward to more quantum moves. I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna add the clocks also to the screen again so that you guys can see the time management as well. At the start is not that crucial. We are starting from 20 minutes, but as we approach time pressure, of course, that will be another factor to take into account.
Yeah. We did end the last one early though, so with the schedule.
Yes, that game was shorter. It's interesting how the first game was basically, it had to be decided by the king off with the quantum computer we have access to, because it went on for so long, and the previous match was the exact opposite. It ended before the scheduled time. But now we are here for the third match, and I can't wait to see what these players have come up with after potentially having seen one or two of the previous matches. So far it's a traditional opening. It's the Italian opening with bishop c4. Usually it is called the gioco piano if black plays bishop c5 to the Italian opening. But maybe Sean will decide to split the bishop and move it to c5 and b4 at the same time. I don't know if that's a good move or not, but I'm just saying it would be cool. It would be really cool.
It would be. Yeah, I like doing moves like that. Even if it's only a 50-50, it forces your opponent to make interesting decisions, I think.
True, because you don't know for sure on which square the piece is.
Yeah.
I wonder who will be the first to make a quantum move. let's make another poll on that too as well here on our Twitch channel, because I'm curious. Will it be Ethan? Will it be Sean? And will we get to finish the poll before the move happens? That's another question.
So I don't know if you want to read the bios at all, or...
Absolutely. Please let us know about the players more and their previous experience in chess or quantum chess.
So, yeah, so Ethan Hansen, he's a product marketing specialist at Zapata Computing. Loves quantum computing and math and physics. He doesn't have any past formal or even semi-formal chess experience.
Amazing.
Other than reading an illustrated book on chess strategy when he was in 3rd grade and playing with his friends occasionally. So.
Well, that's quite something. I was gonna say, he's playing a traditional opening. I think he must know a thing or two about chess.
Yeah. Let's see. His background in quantum computing is no formal training in that as well, but he's self-taught and he's very interested in things. Let's see. Do I have a bio on Sean? I don't know if I got one from him.
Sean from QC were here fighting with the black pieces. So far it's a symmetrical position. Yes. They could break the symmetry with the quantum move. I'm just saying.
Okay, yeah. So we have Sean. He's a researcher at QCware. No past chess experience other than knowing the rules. So we have two players who claim they don't have any chess knowledge.
And yet they are playing a good opening setup. So this does require some skills to know that those opening moves make a lot of sense, to fight for the center, develop your pieces, castle as soon as you can so that your king is in safety. So they are ticking all the boxes I teach to beginners when it's my community, when I'm teaching my viewers, or PogChamp's coaching sessions where we teach other streamers and gamers to compete at chess. So I'm very happy to see that they have the basics right. They've got the fundamentals. Who will be the first to make a quantum move? The poll is still on, so hopefully the poll will end before we get to see the move.
I should vote in this poll.
Which one? Which player are you choosing, Chris? Is that possible to tell us? Will you let us know? It's tight for now.
I think it's going to be Sean.
Sean. I'm gonna pick Ethan then, and then we have a 50-50 between your vote and mine as well.
On a side note, Sean would like a quantum version of Mahjong. I guess he plays a lot of Mahjong.
Oh, that's great. That's a game I'm recalling that I used to play it, but as a kid. So I think as a kid, it's a simpler version. Would it be possible? Because I guess for children it's not the same complexity. I don't know if there's a simplified version, or I was playing the actual version but without understanding much of the game. One or the other.
I honestly can't say I've ever played Mahjong. I mean, I might have played it once or twice as a kid, but I don't even know the rules. So
yeah, I don't think I would be able to recall the proper rules, but I know I tried it a couple of times as a kid. I wonder if it's the same version. And I guess even if it's the same game, there's a difference between finding legal moves, just like on the chessboard. Can you find a legal move, or do you actually have a plan behind your move?
Yeah. That's one of the interesting challenges with coming up with quantum versions of games, is how do you translate traditional classical rules? Oh,
Chris, we have the first quantum move. That's a split. Ethan. I think it was a small majority in the poll between Ethan and Sean in favor of Ethan. He made the first quantum move, and it's a split of the king, much like Doug played. It's a strategy that Doug has applied very successfully in the first match. So maybe Ethan is inspired by the play of Doug, and that king split. Will he also split it to 4, 6, 7 other squares?
We could see the floating point precision error.
I wonder how Sean will react. Will he also attempt to play a quantum move, or will he continue with traditional moves, but not knowing where the king is for sure?
Right now, there's not a great way for him to get to either of those, so he might just keep playing traditionally to open up the position a little more, and then then start splitting stuff.
I think he's considering. Yes, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's one thing with the split moves is you tend to need more space. So it's a little bit easier once there's less pieces on the board.
I see. So a couple of trades would happen for us to see the quantum effects more. Now it's a possible trade between the bishops. And I was gonna remind myself too about what I forgot in the previous analysis, that you cannot quantum capture. You cannot split your pieces whether you capture or not. So bishop takes e6 would be a capture for sure. But Ethan could decide to move the bishop, split it between a square where it can be captured and another square like b5 where it's out of the way.
Yeah. What he could also do is split it to, say, d5 and b3, where both of those could be captured individually by the e6 bishop, but neither one for sure, and then he could recapture.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious if anything like that will happen. And just in case some of the viewers weren't here earlier, there are also a couple of questions regarding the rules. And I think Speaker Ender was asking us about the quantum castling. Can you explain that again, Chris? What would happen if you want to castle in a quantum way? So you split your king.
So you can't use a split move to castle in the current rule set, but you can get sort of a quantum version of castling only in the queenside castle. If there's a piece in superposition on b1 that's kind of blocking the path, then you can castle that direction, and you get a superposition of all of the pieces between a1 and e1. So if you'd like, I can show that in Sandbox again.
We could. I think it's great because we still have some time. The initial moves usually happen somewhat slower. That's when the players still have quite some time. So let's take a look at that example because I think it's really interesting to see how that works in practice.
Okay. Let me just set it up.
And Dream Happen is asking, are there entanglement principles? I think Chris is the one again to explain that because I know yes, but he will explain to you how that works. Maybe the example helps for that too, the one that he's setting up.
Yeah, this will be a good demonstration of entanglement. I think this is the right window. Okay, so here's Sandbox mode again. It doesn't respect turn order, so you can move any pieces you want. So let's say this knight is in superposition here.
Yes.
And then I want to castle this direction. Get a controlled operation, so that castle works if the knight isn't there. If the knight is there, the castle doesn't work. It acts as identity on the quantum state, as we say. What it creates is an entangled state between all of these pieces. So all of their positions depend on each other. If you right click, you can see that. So these outer rings show how much they're entangled and sort of what the orientation of that entanglement is. So if the ring is the same color, that means they're existing in the same state or the same universe or board, however you want to think about it. If they're different colors, that means they're sort of opposite.
Yeah.
So measurement will show that.
I think the previous time we showed this example, some of the viewers were wondering about the chip. There's a pink part in one of the circles, the one in the corner. If you can show that again, and what does that mean? That pink part.
So, okay, you have some more superposition on the game board. If you, I can.
Is there any chance just to click back to that before we move on? So simply the corner piece, that's potential rook or not, it has a chip, a pink chip.
So that's a display of relevant phase information, and there isn't always relevant phase information in a state. But let's say I had split this queen here. Now I right click on the queen.
Yeah. Oh!
They're entangled, and they're both have this wedge pointed in the same direction. That means they're in phase. And what you can tell from that is that if they're both completely in phase, then a merge move will be successful.
Okay, so that helps for merge moves, that information.
But if I had done another move with one half of this first, and I bring this up again,
Ooh.
see its phase rotated by
Uh-huh.
90 degrees. So now they're 90 degrees out of phase, and a merge move won't be successful.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see.
But I think this is actually a case where you can do a split move and accomplish the same as a merge. So if I were to split this queen onto this square, the e6 square,
Mm-hmm.
and c6, you actually get a merge.
Okay, I did not see that coming. I thought I was understanding what's going on, but now I don't.
So that's a consequence of interference,
Mm-hmm.
one of the quantum effects that's in the game. So
We're gonna learn more about these details, but as you said, the quantum moves are happening in the game too, so we're gonna jump back to the position. Thank you guys for your questions. It's very interesting to see what is it that you find, what are the details that you are curious about regarding quantum chess, which rules, which situations you want to ask Chris about. And now the position. Okay, Chris, what has happened? Tell us about it.
We have a lot of quantum.
Whoa, we have missed so many of those moves.
A lot of split moves. So the last move was c3, so the knight here on c3 splitting to b5 and d5.
Yeah.
Before that, we had a split from a8 to e8 and d8. That would have been up here, so this rook split from the corner to occupy both of those. Then we had a split from g5 to f4 and h4, so that would have been this, let's see, f4 and h4. So that's, I guess, this bishop here. So what I think happened is this bishop split to occupy e3 and g5, and then split again to occupy f4 and h4. So lots of quantum happened.
Lots of quantum. This last move, this last pair of moves was a traditional capture on d5, a trade, and now the c6 knight, which is clearly on c6, is hanging due to the pawn. But I'm gonna be really curious to figure out where the bishop of Ethan is. Is it on e3, f4, or h4? It could be on any of those three squares. And the knight, so because that knight was coming from c3, the knight on b5 was split between b5 and d5, and one of them is gone from the board, but there's still a chance it's on b5 and it's not been captured. Is that correct?
Right. And so somebody actually pointed out in chat that the capture on d5 traded a full piece for a 50% chance of taking a knight.
True. Is it worth it? Is it worth it, Chris, if it's only a 50% chance the knight was there?
In general, I would say not for a knight. Maybe for a queen.
If it's a queen, that's a 50% chance there.
Yeah, maybe, but it would depend a lot on, I think, the position, but I wouldn't make that trade for half a knight.
I see. It's so much more complex to know who is leading, who has the advantage in quantum chess, I feel like, because with traditional chess, I have enough experience to look at the board and be able to decide quickly who has a better position. But now I'm like, okay, how many pieces are there on the board?
Yeah. Yeah, because really, I mean, you see all these pieces, but really this is
one. It's one
only
bishop.
one bishop.
Yeah.
It just exists in 3 different squares.
2 kings,
So
3 bishops for the dark square.
Yeah.
But now that pawn push by Sean is attacking 2 of the possible locations of the bishop. So Ethan may be losing his bishop because it's both the e5 pawn and the g5 pawn that are attacking f4 and the g5 pawn attacking the h4 bishop. The only bishop that seems to be safe from the pawns is the e3 bishop.
Right. So he could actually capture, say, h4 with the g5 pawn, and on his following turn, capture on f4 with the same g5 pawn. That would force a measurement of the g5 pawn. So it would help collapse this state a little bit.
I wonder if it's gonna happen or not. Will Ethan go for it, or will he retreat one of the bishops. He could also split it, I guess, but there's not much room. What's interesting here is there's not much room for the bishops. Neither the f4 bishop nor the h4 bishop have more than one square. If it's not the capture, they will have to go back to g3. But you cannot split two pieces. You can split a piece between two squares, but you cannot say, I'm moving both the f4 bishop and the h4 bishop at the same time.
Right. But what he could do, let me see. So they are...
Whoa, whoa. That was magic.
So he could merge f4 and h3 into g3, and it will, even if it's not a full merge, it will save more of his probability than not.
I see. So that would be a good decision, a good quantum decision to merge the f4 and h4 bishops into one on g3. And it's still not 100% there because it could also be on e3. But
Right.
you are right. You are right. He's less likely to lose the piece if he does that. d4. Instead of retreating the bishop, Ethan goes for a brave counter-attack to attack the bishop on c5.
So one of the players, or one of the people in chat asks, let's see, which one is the real bishop and king? Does the white player even know? So you can think of it as if there are multiple boards at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And on each of these boards, one of those is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
When you do moves in the game, it acts on all of the boards at the same time. So if the move is legal on that board, it will have some effect. If it's not legal, it leaves the board untouched. But the outcome is determined later when a measurement is done.
So we are waiting again for a moment of measurement, the moment of truth, on where
Yes.
the piece is, or which universe is going to be the one that decides the fate of the piece, the outcome, in case the piece will be captured or not. I'm curious, I was curious if Sean would split the bishop or just move away. He goes for the traditional bishop move, attacking the rook of Ethan on e1. Is there any tricky moves that you would suggest here for white?
For white,
Yes, now that the rook is hanging, do you think there's a way in which he could play for a bait? Is there a way in which you can... Well, the only issue I was going to say is to split the rook, but you can only move to e2. It has very limited space, the rook.
well, he could split to e2 and e4. Now,
Because,
wouldn't
the bishop may not be on e3. I'm just understanding that, we
Correct.
are not sure of that. So you could try to move to e4. What happens in that case, Chris?
So that would create an entangled state between the bishop and the rook. You would probably want to do it as a split if you're trying to, and you could just move to e2, but if you want to get to e4, you want to do this split to e2 and e4, because otherwise you're going to have some amount of your rook left on e1.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a 50-50 split because part of that universe is blocked by a bishop.
I see. Ethan ends up going for c3, which in traditional chess is probably the best move to get out of the attacked situation of the rook by counter-attacking the bishop c3 using that pawn as a shield. And he can attack that bishop further by pushing the pawn to b4 if he wants to chase it further away. Or go for maybe one of those merging moves that you suggested earlier for the bishops.
You lost. Okay, I lost you for a second, then you're back.
Oh, I also lost you for a moment, and I never know, for the viewers, does it mean they lose both of us? Because
I don't know.
It might be just the connection. I hope we are back on stream as well. It cut out for a moment. I was just curious if you think, again, is it the merging move that's the most interesting here for white? Is there any other ideas that you would suggest here?
I think the merge move is probably the most interesting one here. You get to save your bishop because that's still under threat. There's not a lot of room to do other interesting quantum stuff. So yeah, I would probably go for the merge here. We did have a question in chat. Somebody stepped away and came back and asked how we have just half a knight on b5. So the knight was split between b5 and d5, I believe.
Yes, that central square, which is now gone. So the knight may have been taken, but we don't know for sure because it still half exists on b5, from my understanding.
Right. So yeah, the Sean captured on d5 with, I believe, his bishop, and then Ethan recaptured on d5 with his pawn. So he's left with a knight that is in superposition of being captured and not captured, and he got a full bishop for it.
He did get a full bishop for it, and I'm curious what's gonna be the future for this b5 knight, if there is a future for it. It could still keep making moves, it could still be split, except when it's a capture. So that's something I should remind myself. No, Anna, you cannot just take on c7 and a7 capture pawns with a split move. The queen is being split now. The queen is either on b3 or a4.
So he's kind of putting some pressure on the diagonal with the white bishop there. I'm not sure what he's accomplishing with the other queen. Maybe just safety.
Yes, he is putting pressure on the diagonal that you mentioned, and also the a5 bishop is being attacked by the a4 queen, but it's guarded by the c6 knight, and that knight is there for sure. So there's not a universe where it's not there. But I think his idea is to undermine the protection of the a5 bishop. So if it's gonna be his turn again, he could go for bishop takes knight. The knight that is guarding the bishop on a5 could be captured by the white bishop from d5. And then, if he does have a queen on a4, he could end up taking the bishop on a5. That could be his idea.
Right. That would be interesting.
And now we shall also see if Sean will go for a capture of the potential bishop positions. Do you think he should? Should he try to capture the bishop on f4 or h4 with the pawn?
If I were him, I would.
Which one would you go for? Which capture is better, you think?
I think I would go for f4.
With the g pawn or the e pawn?
I think with the e pawn, because that leaves the g pawn to threaten the h4 bishop.
Yeah.
And my follow-up would be to capture from f4 to e3, which would force a measurement and force the position to collapse a bit. And that's either going to work out very successfully, and I think I would end up with a pawn on f4 and there is no bishop on e4. And then all you have is this bit of bishop left on h4 that is going to die pretty soon because there's nowhere it can go. Or it would collapse to my pawn is on e5, and this bishop on h4 would have more probability, which means you can capture more next turn.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that neither of those captures happen, but Sean goes for the protection of the a5 bishop, but he forgets that if he pushes that b pawn, which he ended up playing, then the knight has no one guarding that piece. The c6 knight is in the air with a traditional capture. The bishop takes c6 knight is a move here that will win the knight and attack the rook on e8 if it's on e8. Ethan sees it and goes for it. I'm guessing that Sean must have missed this because he was concerned about the bishop, but he forgot that the b pawn was also guarding the knight. He should now go for perhaps one of the bishop captures. In order to win the piece back, he will have to try to figure out on which square the bishop is.
Yeah, it's interesting that he hasn't gone for it yet. Maybe because they're only 25%, they're not full bishops, and he doesn't want to trade his pawn structure for a 25% bishop.
Maybe he's going for a more valuable piece. He's attacking with his b pawn. The queen, and that means that the knight was not on b5. The knight was captured earlier on d5 because if the knight was on b5, this move was gonna be impossible.
Right. Yeah, so it forced a measurement on b5 and found that the knight had been captured, which I guess makes that trade earlier not so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that case, we were wondering, is it worth it to give up a full piece for a piece that's only 50% sure on d5 that happened on d5, the capture earlier? But it's true, the knight was on d5, not on b5, that's why the pawn push is possible. What would have happened in the game if the knight was indeed on b5, and then do you lose your move because you cannot move the pawn? Do you just lose your turn?
Essentially, yes, that is your turn is forcing that measurement, which causes the collapse.
I see. So that would have been the move, just the measurement and no actual moves happening on the board. The bishop takes the pawn in order to save the queen. Very logical move. Also, the bishop on a5, the black bishop is hanging. Another move that reveals where the piece is. The rook has gone to b8. Was that the merging move, or it's because
that was a merge move? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Merge move happened to attack the bishop on b5, but Sean didn't notice that the a5 bishop is hanging. So if Ethan's queen is on a4, he can capture the bishop, but it may not be there.
I wonder if he's going to go for it.
What happens if he tries and the queen is not there? Then we will just know that the queen is on b3. Does it have any other consequences?
That would be the only consequence, because I don't believe the queen is entangled with any of the other pieces. So, yeah, we would find out that the queen is definitely on b3.
I'm curious if he wants to figure out where the queen is, or will he keep it mysterious with the split pieces?
I think it would be good to go for it because it solidifies the defense of your bishop on b5, and you have a chance to capture a piece with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the rook is threatening that bishop.
Yeah, he could gain a bishop, or if the queen is not on a4, he doesn't lose much by figuring out where the queen is.
Right. As long as his queen is split like this, he is guarding his b5 bishop.
Yeah.
But there's no guarantee that he would be able to capture back.
Oh, that's so true. I'm just understanding what you have said. Is it possible to set this up in Sandbox? Do you think we have time to set it up? Because I find this moment really instructive, how the queens are split. So either the black bishop is hanging and could be taken, or if the queen is on b3, there's no capture. But as Chris said, as of now, with the queens being both on a4 and b3, you may not be able to take back on b5 because you will need to know. It's true that both queens are guarding that bishop, but you need to choose which square you move from. And that's gonna be the measurement moment, the moment of truth.
Yeah, so let me change what I'm showing real quick.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have the queen split here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, white can choose to keep this superposition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then if white does some other move and black captures here, there's no guarantee of being able to capture back.
Mm-hmm.
Like that failed, and now you're in big trouble because you're going to lose your queen. So if you're going to do that, you want to try and capture with this one.
Indeed.
Because if it fails, well, now you're not losing your queen. But instead of doing some other move, if you try and capture here, whether you're successful or not, you're definitely guarding this bishop. So if you fail, then your queen is here, and you can't really capture with the rook, or you lose your rook. If you're successful, try it a few times. Right there, well, now you've gained a bishop, and you're still guarding your bishop.
So it would make a lot of sense for Ethan to go for this move. Let's see if he has played it or not. Because in the other scenario, as you already showed it on our example board, oh, the queens are still split. He moved to c4 with the queen from b3. He moves to c4 without splitting it. So it's still only on two squares, 50-50%. But the problem will be what you have said, what you have showed to us, Chris. If the rook captures the bishop, Ethan will need to choose which queen will take on b5? From which square are you moving to b5?
Right. Now, at least in this case, if he fails that recapture, he's not then exposing his queen to be captured again on either of those. So
Very
he did
true.
some queen safety with this, but
Yeah. He stepped out of that very dangerous b file. The black rook was targeting the queen through that pin. So it's a smart decision to step out of danger. He's material up. But I think because the pieces are split and you can lose your queen easily to a quantum move, this is, I believe, still wide open, the game. Both of them have some chess skills, some fundamental understanding, but not much chess experience. And quantum chess is new to both of them. So I think this is a 3 possible result game. Although there's no draw. In quantum chess today,
Right.
we will have no draws.
yeah. Oh, we saw the pawn capture. The pawn captured one piece of that bishop there.
Tell us about what happened with the circle, the percentages.
So because pawn capture is conditional on the piece that you're capturing actually being there, normally a pawn can't move diagonally. So it does a conditional move where on the boards where that is legal, it does the capture. Otherwise, it does nothing. And so what you get is a pawn that's in superposition, with the probability being mostly that it did nothing because on most of the boards, this bishop wasn't there. It was about 25%. So about 25% the pawn captured. The other 75% is still sitting in e5. But it's now entangled with the state of this bishop. So if I right-clicked on this pawn, you would see that there's some entanglement with the bishop here.
Exactly. Those colors are so helpful, and the players have access to the same tool that they can click and see those colors. From my understanding, this is exactly what
Yes.
they see. So it's more likely that the pawn is on g5, but it could still be on h4. So just because there's a higher percentage, a higher probability for the pawn still being on g5 and not having captured the bishop, it doesn't mean it hasn't happened, right?
Right. It has happened on some boards that exist in this position.
In one universe it has happened, in the other we have more pawn captures.
Okay. So
And the bishop is gone officially. There's still one left though. The percentage
Right.
is increasing for the bishop on e3. Wait a second. Chris.
So that is a consequence of the fact that it was entangled with this pawn. So he first captured here on h4, which captured the bishop on one of the possible boards in the superposition and entangled the pawn with the rest of his bishop. And then he tried to capture from g5 to f4, which forced a measurement of the g5 pawn. Now, that was 75%, so very likely outcome that it is there. One of the possible reasons that it's there is because this bishop is still back here, right? It means it's more likely that the bishop didn't actually move if the pawn is on g5, because otherwise it might have been able to capture on h4. So the probability of it being on e3 increased with that measurement.
I see. And we also have a measurement for the queen, which was split between c4 and a4, because Ethan ended up taking the bishop. That caused the measurement, and we eventually see that the queen was in fact on a4 and can take the bishop on a5. It's gone now from the board.
And he solidified his defense of the b5 bishop.
Very true. So an advantageous position for Ethan, but we still don't know what's going to happen to the e3 bishop, especially now with the black pawn on f4 that could continue capturing. It could take on e3.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a way that this pawn would end up on e3, because the only way it would get to f4 is if it already captured this bishop.
True, so it doesn't make sense to attempt to take the bishop on e3 because it will only show that it has not happened.
Right. or it could show that it has happened. It could measure the state and collapse to a state where this bishop isn't on e3 because it's already been captured, but your pawn would still be on f4.
I see. So instead of that capture, which I suggested, but it's not a good idea, Sean plays a better move, pushing the pawn to g4, attacking the knight on f3. So the knight is for sure on f3, but the pawn may not be on g4. It may be on f4.
So he moved it out of the way.
Knight takes e5 by Ethan. That sacrifices the knight. I wonder if he missed that the black pawn can capture the knight. So queen capture would be good for Ethan. If queen takes knight, he can then take the queen with his pawn. But pawn takes knight, that's more problematic.
Yep. He must have just missed it.
Pawn takes knight happens, so this game is again wide open. It's one piece or two pieces up for Ethan, depending on whether that bishop still exists or not.
We still don't know.
We still don't know, and we still don't know where the king of white is, because Ethan ended up splitting the pawn at the start of the game, which is a useful defensive move, and I understand it's, as Doug showed it in the first match, it's difficult to hunt down the king if you don't know where it is exactly.
Yeah. So if you're looking for just a delaying tactic, split your king, it gives you a little bit of king safety.
Exactly. I wonder if Sean will go for that strategy as well. He now needs to decide whether to take that pawn, but is this a dangerous move to play, taking into account that the bishop on e3 may not be there, and in that case the rook could capture the queen?
It could be. I mean, it's more likely. Okay.
A measurement has happened, because I believe Ethan tried to take the queen. He tried to take the queen, and it means the bishop is on e3, so he couldn't take the queen.
Yes. So he did. It was more likely than not that it failed, but it was a chance. But it did measure to make sure that the rook could actually reach e5 and found that the bishop is there in the way.
Yeah, but because he tried to take the queen, which I would have done so, I 100% wanted to take the queen.
Me too.
There was a chance it was gonna be a capture, and then you win a queen, so it's worth trying. But because he tried and the queen was not captured, the bishop is on e3, it means that he lost that turn for the measurement, and now Sean is taking advantage of this time that he gained by pushing c6. There's a pin on the 5th rank, so if Ethan moves the white bishop, the queen can capture the queen for free.
That is true.
Difficult situation to be in. That bishop is gonna be lost. Would you suggest any quantum moves for Ethan here to split the queen, maybe move out of that 5th rank?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a good one. He doesn't have a lot of good options here. He could split to c7.
Ooh, he's splitting his bishop in a way that it attacks the queen from both squares. Is the bishop on d4 or is the bishop on f4? And the rook is also
threatens this rook.
Yeah, very true. So now so many things are happening here. The white rook for sure is attacking the queen, and one of the bishop too is attacking the queen, but you're right. The rook too was on the same diagonal. Sean plays queen f4, which means that there's still a chance that the bishop on d4 is alive if it wasn't on f4.
It did unpin his bishop.
True, now he can escape from b5. He has gained that moment to escape. It was a smart move to split the bishop that way, because he may have lost it, but there's a chance he did not lose the bishop, right?
Right, and we just had him capture.
The bishop captured the pawn on a7. Now the rook is hanging. Those pieces are there on the board for sure. The only piece in this moment that's in a quantum position is the king. It's still being split between two squares.
Oh, We have more quantum.
The rook. Tell us about this move, Chris. What's going on?
So he split his rook to threaten the A file and the E file.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if white tries to capture with his rook on the E file, then he's trading a rook for half a rook, which isn't a great trade.
Mm-hmm.
But it does kind of pin the bishop on A7, because if he moves that, then his queen is under threat by half a rook.
True. It's a tricky position with the rooks. And Nupanu from our viewers is asking whether queen takes h2 would make sense, but the problem, again, I guess, is that the capture wouldn't be a split move. So if you know that the queen is on h2, then the king will take it. If you could get the queen to h2 without a capture and split it between another square and h2, maybe then it would make sense to place the queen in a way that it's hanging. Would there be a scenario if the pawn is not on h2, if you could just move there as a split move, would you consider that as a good option, Chris, to split the queen?
I think it's a decent option, especially if white chose to try and capture half a queen with the king, because that's going to force a measurement of the king, force you to find out where it's definitely at.
Yeah, and
then
then
you can possibly capture back.
Exactly, you would either end up winning a queen or you end up losing the game, because if the king is in the other square, you end up capturing the king.
Right.
Some great suggestions there, everyone. If it's not a capture, it would be a possible move. The queen is now being split between two squares, b6 and b4, and the bishop is gone. Sean takes the bishop on b5. But that means that now Ethan could capture from b4. He could capture the black queen, because the queen is on f4, but it's not sure that Ethan has a queen on b4. He could also take the rook on f8. So this b4 queen, if it's on b4, no, f8 is not the right move here. Okay, he tried to take the queen, which I totally I wanted to take it again. I always want to capture the free queens, but it was on b6, not on b4. So the queen is alive, and it's now black to move.
At least he's still protecting that bishop.
He is. Yeah, it wasn't much of a risk for him. It was a low risk, huge reward. He could have gained the full piece, the queen, on f4 if it was gonna be the situation that the queen was on b4. So I think it was the right decision in that sense, because he had a lot to gain but not much to lose.
Right. I would be inclined to split the e1 rook to threaten the queen on f4.
Yeah. So you would move it to which square apart from e4? E4 and another one.
You could go all the way to e7.
E4 and e7. Sorry, I think that was my phone. E4 and e7. That scared me. All these notifications just suddenly pop up. My Alexa 2 sometimes responds to when I'm streaming and I say something similar to the word Alexa or Alexandra, Alexander, or I don't know, I just mispronounced something, and then Alexa starts responding. Those are... Okay, I shouldn't have said this because now she's waking up. She already started blinking with the lights on and such. What's happening now, Chris? The rook, we know now, was moved to e1.
So he traded rooks, it looks like. Yeah, so he moved his split rook to capture on e1, which measured his rook, found that it was there, so it did the capture, but then it was just captured right back. So he traded rooks.
He traded rooks, and we still have this situation where we are not sure whether the king is on f1 or h1. How long they have left from the game, I wonder. Will we see another tiebreaker with the king off?
We might. We're getting close. They started the game at 12:14 Pacific time, so they have another 13 minutes, just under 13 minutes.
13
They're also
minutes.
getting low on time control.
They are down to their final minutes, so there's an increment, but it's not too much. It's not too much. Do you think we will see a finish to this game? What would be your prediction? Will we see a king capture or someone losing on time? That time is part of the game too.
I think we're going to see a king face-off again.
King face-off. So let's see. Let's see if it's gonna be a king face-off, or will Sean go for an attacking move that will show us where the king is. As for now, he cannot split the queen in that way because that would be a capture. Captures cannot be split.
Right.
What would be an ideal move here for Sean? Taking into account that his position isn't the best, he's a piece down, but something tricky, something where he could gain in case of a measurement. He moves the queen to d2 in a traditional way.
I don't really know yet. Let's see. He could capture f2 with the queen. Gamble his... Oh no, because the other queen is guarding it. Yeah. He doesn't have a great way to reach Ethan's king yet. He needs to bring his rook out. So I think actually probably what might be good is splitting the rook to e8 and d8.
And if you split the rook, then white may want to figure out if the rook is hanging or not.
Right, but it's either way you're baiting a piece and possibly coming out ahead.
I'm curious to see if Sean will go for any of those, if he has the chance. But now, Ethan is back with the quantum moves. He's splitting his queen between d4 and e3.
So that's interesting because either one he captures, he would be trading a full queen for half a queen because both are guarded by the pawn.
So this is a good decision, isn't it? Because if Sean takes one of it, it's not sure he's taking a queen, but he's giving up a full queen for half a queen, a possible queen.
Right.
Then in Sean's shoes, I guess he should run. He takes on e1. Oh, wait a second, because it's not sure.
Yeah.
It's not sure.
Oh.
It was the queen that guarded the rook eventually. The queen was on e3, but it wasn't sure. The king could have been on f1 or h1. The queen could have been on d4 or e4 or e3. So it was a good try. I thought it was a good attempt.
Very good try. I'm actually going to set that up in Sandbox because that was...
Yeah, we need to take a look at that later if we have a moment, because I thought that was a brilliant idea. It could have been... It ended up losing the queen, but it also could have won the game. It could have won the game for Sean.
Yeah, so we had something like this.
And now Ethan is with the queen up, but it's still not that simple to hunt the king down if Sean also splits the king.
All right. I have it set up in Sandbox if you want to look at it now, or we could look at it after the game.
Sure. I don't know how long the game will go on. If you think... Yeah, Ethan is still thinking, so probably we have a chance to take a look at it.
Okay.
Let's take a look at that queen move, queen to e1.
All right.
It was a big brain move, as my community is saying. We have a big brain emote. That was a very big brain move.
Let's get that in then. All right, I think we had a position... Oh, I messed up this split, but we'll just go with it. So we had something like this, and I forgot a pawn right there, but and pretend there's a pawn right here on c3.
Yeah, and the king too was split between f1 and h1.
Yes. So this queen was being threatened. He couldn't capture either of those because both were guarded by pawns. So instead, he chose to go here. Now, white can capture back with either the king or the queen. Chose to capture back with the queen.
And the decision is very important because if you choose the wrong piece, you're gonna lose the game.
Right. So if he had tried to capture with the king and failed, well, now on the next turn, you just lose.
Yeah. That's such a
So
critical decision.
So instead, he tries to capture with the queen. He succeeded, but if he had failed, he could have captured here, which would have had the same effect. You measure this F1 king, and if it's not there, then you win the game.
Mm-hmm.
So
What a
it was
game.
very
What a
interesting.
game. I liked it a lot. I thought Queen E1 was a great chance for Sean because he was already material down and he could have turned the tables if the universe wanted it to be that way.
Yeah.
Split rooks now on E8 and D8. Ethan's queen is running away because you don't want to give up the queen for a 50% rook and see whether you're right or not. But now, wait a second. Chris, the back rank check. If the king is on H1, you cannot get away from the back rank.
Yeah. Although he could keep running the F1 king. But this is interesting because if he goes to, okay, so we see a split here.
Uh-oh. Is that a good one?
Yes,
Ooh.
because of that. Or no, not a good split, but there wasn't really a good split. This was a great move by Black because of that. He had threats on both the back rank and the E file.
So Ethan goes for a counter check.
Right now.
If the king is on G1 and the black rook moves to G1, then it's game over. If the king is on H1 and the black rook moves to G1, then the game goes on. But now Sean is also splitting his king. Whose king is where? Who is winning?
Because his king was under threat by the white queen, and if his next move fails...
True.
But see, the difference is Sean's king has room to move around and split and run.
Yeah.
Ethan's king is trapped.
That's such a big difference. So Ethan,
I think on this next move, we're going to see an end to this game one way or another.
Yeah. So I guess instead of splitting the king to E1, he should have tried to run away, as you suggested, split it to E2. Because then there was a universe where his king was gonna run away. Now he has nowhere to run. Splitting the queen too between H8 and G8.
Now, see if Sean finds this. There's a guaranteed win here in two moves.
Really?
If he tries to capture on H1,
yeah,
it's either going to be successful,
or
if it fails, then the king will be 100% on G1.
And then you capture it next move.
And then you can try and capture again on H1.
I see.
Then it'll be 100% on G1 and you capture it and you win.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious if he'll go for it, because if he chooses the G1 king, if he chooses to take on G1 and it's not on G1, does that make a difference? Yeah, because the rook will be on G1 and white can take the rook.
Right, and he's got a 50% chance of still being in the game. So which one he tries to capture here is critical.
Oh, he's not sure what's going on. I hope he didn't lose connection to the game or close it by mistake.
It looks like he H7 G7. He moved his king back and forth, and all it did was swap the phases.
Oh no! So it's Ethan's move? Wait a second.
Maybe a mouse slip. But then Ethan tried to capture and failed because his queen wasn't in the right square.
Uh-oh. So a mistake back and forth. It must have been a mouse slip from Sean's reaction, because he was really, really upset for a moment. I thought he might have closed the game and he needs to make it back before the time runs out.
Let's see.
So it's black to move again. Sean has to take the right king. He has to choose the right one. Will he do it? He's down to 38 seconds.
He's still running his king away. Interesting.
He thinks his king is in a bigger trouble because he's not sure if the white king is on g1 or h1. He doesn't see that he could take the one on h1. Maybe he knows that if he takes on g1, he either wins or loses the rook, but he may not remember that he can go through the g1 king since it may not be on g1. Right. Oh! And Sean wins. He eventually took the king on h1. He finally has pressed that square too. But what a game! What a game between Ethan and Sean. Will you go and talk to the players, Chris?
Yeah, I'm gonna go jump in there and tell them good job and get the other players set up.
Absolutely. What a game. What a game. What did you guys think? What did you think about this absolute turn of events? It was Ethan who had a piece up, then won a second piece, eventually wins the queen too in that really interesting position where Sean went to e1 with his queen, and it could have been a really strong move. It could have won the game, or it could have lost the piece, the queen, for Sean. Eventually he ends up losing the queen. Ethan playing the final stage of the game with the queen up, but there was a rook to compensate for the queen, and that rook ended up being the hero of the game because the king of Ethan, even though it was split between a couple of squares, it couldn't keep existing. It couldn't run away from the back rank. You need room for the king, much like Sean did with his kings. You see his kings being split, but also having quite some room to run away from the queen. That's what Ethan needed to. He had to start running away with the king. But if the king was on h1, even in case of king e2, he would have lost the game. So that is such an interesting, exciting outcome. I definitely did not see this coming, that you can win with just a rook on the back rank, and the queen was trying to hunt down the black king but couldn't find the square in which it was. Let me know what did you guys think of this. And there will be one more match. Let me show you the bracket. There will be one more match after this game. We have the final match, the final quarterfinals match of the day. It is between Martin Rotteler and Alexander Kubica. They will be here joining us shortly for this final quarterfinals. And remember, the semifinals and the finals will be part of the Q2B Quantum Computing Conference starting on December the 8th. If you use the !conference command, that's the link where you can join the conference to see in the virtual platform of the conference the semis and the final. I'm gonna make sure that Chris is with me. Oh, I'm still showing the cross table. That was a misclick. I also misclick here and there.
To get in?
Sure. I'm gonna change the scene and set it up for the final match of the day. What did the players say about that game? What did they think?
They had fun. They said it was a little confusing at the end. They didn't realize how entanglement would work there, so.
With the kings on g1 and h1, they weren't sure, I guess.
Yeah.
Understandable, because I also keep forgetting that you can go through a piece that may not be there, because we don't know if the king is on g1 or h1.
Yes, okay, so we have the players in.
I will just need you to jump out and jump back for the cameras. For the cameras to set back to where they were. Now we have it.
We get set up on their game and get started.
This is gonna be the final match of the day, the final quarterfinal match, and then, as I said, the semis and the final during the Quantum Computing Conference starting on December the 8th. Make sure to join us for the semis and finals too if you like the event and if you want to follow up on who's gonna win it. So far, how do you feel about Quantum Chess? Will you try playing it? Because you can download to the older version, the beta version too. Will be the beta version is out as well, but the newest, the latest build will be available soon as well for everyone. Now the players are using the updated beta version for this tournament. You will try it, Apo? I'm happy to hear that. Yes, the new build will be out soon. And in the meantime, you can use the one that's currently available and beta. I don't know if they still are taking on beta testers, but you can perhaps volunteer to be a beta tester if you would like to.
All right, we are set to go, Anna.
Amazing. The players are ready. We are ready. This is the fourth and final quarterfinals match of the day between Mr. Kubica and Mr. Roteler. I hope I am not mispronouncing the surnames. It could be Kubica or Kubica. I guess depends on the nationality, or Kubica. So many different spellings. Chris, I'm gonna hand it over to you in case you know the players better, and you can tell us about their profiles.
Yeah, let me see if I can find theirs. So I have a whole list of the profiles, and I didn't get a chance to organize them at all.
Sure, take your time. In the meantime, I do see that we have a traditional opening, the Sicilian defense. The Sicilian defense on the board, the Najdorf variation of the Sicilian. So even without you reading the bio of the players for us, Chris, we do see from the opening choice that both of them have quite some experience in chess.
Well, that's good. I don't know that I have a... Oh, okay. I have bio now. They sent it late.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to open my email. So
sure, take your time.
Martin, who is a research manager at Microsoft working on quantum algorithms. He used to play chess at club level in Germany, but retired from chess after he did his postdoc in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alexander is from Poland. He got a PhD in quantum physics from Caltech. And when he was a teenager, he played a few amateur chess tournaments.
I see.
So,
that explains. Yeah, the opening choice definitely shows skillful players. They have quite some experience in chess. I wonder how their quantum chess will be, and if they end up making many quantum moves or just a few. So far, everything is traditional.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I do feel like we've seen more quantum stuff out of the players who haven't had as much chess experience.
Mm-hmm. True, the previous match was insane. Both Ethan and Sean have gone for so many split moves, and here's the first split move of the day, the first quantum move of this match, not the day. I was confusing what I'm saying already. This is Alexander going for a knight split. How do you see this move, Chris? Is this a good choice?
It does offer to bait a piece trade that I do find a lot of new quantum chess players fall into this trap where they think, oh, I'm trading a knight for a knight, so this f6 knight might try to capture the d5 knight, but then be recaptured by the pawn, and really you've traded a piece for maybe a piece, right?
Very true. We shall see if Martin wants to figure out where the knight is and take on d5 or not. What do you suggest here for black? Would you want to take on d5, or it's not worth it because it may just be half a knight? You don't know if it's there.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So you would leave the split situation of the knights as it is, and instead, is it better now to develop with traditional moves, or do you see any good opportunity for black to split their pieces?
You know what? Actually, I'm kind of rethinking what he was trying to accomplish with this, now that I look at the position more.
Yes, what do you think he's trying to accomplish?
If his next move is b5 to c7, he's threatening to win the game, threatening a rook, and if black responds with capturing on c7 with the queen, he's threatening a queen with half a knight.
Yes, and you could end up losing that queen.
You could lose your queen.
Oh, I see it. I think we need to show it in sandbox mode, because I've just realized what you're saying, how important it is. Exactly. Yeah. We should wait, but I think if there's gonna be a decision here, and then we can show that example, because that's so interesting, because both knight jumps, whether the knight is on b5 or d5, in both cases, when you jump to c7, your knight will be captured. So there's nothing else guarding it. It's only one knight. But because you don't know if it's coming from b5 or d5, if it's there or not, and the queen ends up moving to c7 without a capture, if it moves there without a capture, you will lose your queen to the other knight. Fascinating.
Even if he does capture, though, he could. So that's the move I was
talking about. It's happening. But because Martin split his knight, it's also the knight that's guarding c7, not just the queen. So I guess it's better to take with the knight.
But if he fails,
Then his king is dead, maybe?
his king could be dead.
Uh-oh, this could be a very quick game. This
This
could
could
be...
be.
What a move, what an
Yes.
idea by Alexander. This is making it very tough for Martin to respond because you don't
Wow.
know if the knight is there and if you can take it or not. You don't know if that capture is the right one. Wow.
So you could. Oh, he's gambling. So we could see the end of the game right now.
Because he ends up taking the knight, the potential knight on d5 with the pawn. And if the knight is eventually on c7, takes now the king. Alexander wins! It's the shortest game
That's
of the
just
tournament.
game.
Wow.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
thought we had time for sandbox mode, but no, this game was the
Yeah.
fastest. What a finish.
Okay. I'm gonna go and see the players off, and I'll be right back.
Sure. I did not expect this. Did you guys see this coming? Did you guys see this coming? That the game would finish. Poor Martin shaking his head. Alexander with a smile. Obviously, now they can see and hear each other. What a game! I thought it was coming from just like nowhere. That attack came out of the blue. One knight. It was one knight making history by splitting into two, splitting to b5 and d5 at the same time, and then jumping to c7. That's such a big brain strategy by Alexander, because we haven't seen many of the quantum strategies where this would work. He went for it instantly. He went for it. He didn't even need to develop the rest of his pieces. It was one knight that won the game. One knight. In traditional chess, this could not happen because you need all your pieces. At least you need two. You need bodies. You cannot win a game usually with one piece. But in quantum chess, this is fascinating how the splitting of the knight could lead to a position where in one universe you end up taking the knight, but in the other universe it's not there. So it was a risky decision there, a risky choice for black, because his king was 100% on e8. The king was not split. The king was definitely on e8 and ended up being captured. What a game. Martin rocks for taking the chance, Spiro. I agree with you. I agree. He went for it. He captured the possible knight on d5. He took a chance, and it didn't work out. But he could have ended up winning material. So he wanted to. He wanted to win the game by capturing more material. And I don't know what else would have been there a good idea. I think we're gonna take a look at that position after Chris is back.
Yeah,
What
so
a
I'm back.
game! What a game,
So-
Chris!
Apparently, Alexander developed this strategy yesterday when he was practicing.
All right, he came well prepared. He
this was
came well
prep.
prepared.
Yeah.
Can we take a look at those moves in sandbox mode? Because I thought it was fascinating. The whole idea behind splitting the rooks and then ending up on c7.
So I'm going to set it up real quick, and then I'll change the camera over.
Sure. Take your time. What did you guys think of this final game? Wilco, you love quantum chess? I'm happy to hear that. All caps. Wilco usually writes in my chat. He's a friend of mine. And he usually writes in the chat, I love chess in all caps, but now it's I love quantum chess, all caps. Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Quantum chess has the endorsement from Will. It's official. It is official. It is. Will, you will need to be playing quantum chess on your stream. On your stream too. How does quantum chess work? Chess V Live. If you're just joining us, we will show you a really cool example of what happened in the final game. Because apparently Alexander came well prepared. We don't have the players anymore with us. You see their names on the screen. They are not with us anymore, but we want to show you how this final clash happened in the game between Alexander and Martin. I'm fascinated by the fact that Alexander had this idea prepared. He had this strategy with the knight split and jumping to c7.
Give me just a moment. I'm actually trying to set up the full board position.
Sure. Absolutely. That would be great if we have the exact same position. What did you guys think? And will you try playing quantum chess too? I'd like to see your opinions. If you're gonna try your hand at quantum chess? Are you interested in quantum computing too now because of this? I truly think that through this game, you learn about quantum concepts in general. I had no idea about superposition, entanglement, measurement. I had no idea about those terms and what they refer to before I played my first quantum chess game. So it's great that there's a game which is fun to play, and at the same time you learn actual concepts from the world of quantum computing.
Okay, so let me change windows here.
Sure. Let's see if we can go to the other board. This is what happened in this fourth and final quarterfinals match between Alexander and Martin. Alexander going for the knight split. And you were thinking here, Chris, I remember, because first we were just talking about whether the knight will be captured on d5 or not. And then you started discovering that Alexander has a very deep idea. And that is to get the knight to c7. The funny thing that in both universes, so whether the knight is on b5 or d5, it doesn't have any piece backing it up. In traditional chess, placing the knight on that square doesn't make sense because it's gonna be captured. But in quantum chess, Chris, tell us why in quantum chess this is a big brain idea. If we just make a random move for black, let's say pawn to b6, so that the knight is not even guarding c7, pawn to b6, what's happening here with the knight jump?
So it was a couple moves after this actually, but this is the move that I saw. Mm-hmm. And he ended up going for, I think, one move later or two moves later. Mm-hmm. Is this knight to c7. Now, what this does is it threatens to end the game immediately on the next move by trying to capture this king. Mm-hmm. It also threatens, if you move the king out of the way, to just capture a rook. So now you're up a rook. Mm-hmm. A response of capturing with this queen, you may be up a queen by capturing with your knight. Now, that's only 50% probability. This could fail, and it could just blow up in your face like that. So I believe the response we saw in the game
was a knight split between a6 and c6.
Right. So
instead of the pawn push to b6.
Ignored it, right?
Oh, no, sorry. I meant b6 was just my idea to show the example of knight c7. But can we go back? Or have I messed it up for you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Chris. Because instead of b6, he made a knight split between a6 and c6, if I remember.
Okay. Yeah, actually I have it pulled up right here. So we had b8 to a6, c6. So that was the sequence. Yeah.
And then knight to c7 from b5 to c7. No, wait. First he took on c6. Was it first that he captured? Now I'm confused with the quantum moves. He took on c6.
d4 to c6 next.
Yeah, he took that knight, the possible knight.
No, that isn't right. I must have
he took on c6. The d4 knight took on c6. And the pawn took back. Yeah, he took the knight on c6. The pawn took back.
Oh, there, d4. I was looking at d3. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. He took that piece. The b pawn took back on c6.
Right. So we had that. Yeah. And this is where he went c7. Mm-hmm. So again, we're in this situation where you're threatening to end the game. You're threatening a rook. And if you capture, the knight recaptures. Mm-hmm. So instead, he just ignored it. He went for that. Mm-hmm. And we have this attempt to end the game. In this case...
In our universe, it didn't happen. In the game, it did.
In our faces. But in the game, it worked, and he won. So yeah, that was... At first, I wasn't so sure about that move, but then I saw c7, and I thought, that's actually a really scary move.
What a strategy. I can't believe that he had it prepared. This was preparation by Alexander. Yes. Chris, what do you think of today's matches? How do you see so far the first ever quantum chess tournament, and what can we expect for the semifinals?
I think it was awesome. It would be really cool to see more prep from all of the players. Maybe now that they see that Alex did some prep, they might go home and do some homework.
If you can win in
I
10
actually want to see if
moves,
I can play
10
that same
moves.
sequence out on the quantum computer real quick.
Oh, that would be great. Can we see it? If you play it out on the quantum computer, what would happen?
Yeah. I'm curious. It's a lot of pieces, but I might be able to. Let me, I'm going to simplify it a little bit,
Sure, sure.
just for the position. So we had this. Can you guys see my screen?
I don't see that screen yet. I still see the position you have showed us. Let me switch back to that other scene, but I don't see. Even on my screen, oh, wait, no, this is still the same. I thought it changed for a moment, but no, it's still the same sandbox.
You know what? I was playing in the wrong sandbox mode. Sorry.
It's okay. You didn't want to share? Chris, you
open,
didn't want to share the information with us? You keep it to
I have two
yourself.
versions of the game open, so it's confusing sometimes.
Mhm.
All right, so we have a king and a queen, and we had a rook here, and then the knight split to there, right? The goal is to get to here. So we split there, so yeah. So the goal was to do this split.
Mm-hmm.
So for viewers just joining, this is now running on Google's quantum computer in Santa Barbara. It's connected remotely, so there is a good amount of lag, and there are errors on quantum computers, so you might see probabilities that aren't quite 50-50 like we saw in the simulator.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the goal was to get to the position where this knight is on c7.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you recaptured, again, all of this runs slowly because of lag, but we should see. So we recaptured, and that probability is not quite 100%, which is why you still see the ring. The probability that the quantum computer returned is 99%.
Mm-hmm.
That would be one of those errors. And actually, this knight is now 47% instead of 50. But you could try and recapture with this knight and see what happens.
What do you think will happen, Chris? What's your prediction?
Well, it worked, but now you have a little tiny knight.
Little tiny knight on c7.
So, again, that is errors. So it's interesting to see. I mean, it's new hardware, and so you can see the effects of it still being so young, but it'll be interesting to see as we get better and better quantum computers how this error stuff, error mitigation and stuff like that improves.
So what does it mean? If it wasn't an error, what is it that we would see right now?
So it would have either, well, I guess this would have been successful, which means the knight would have been here with 100% probability, and you would have gained a queen. But if we can undo that move and wait for the quantum computer to get the answer back to us, and we'll undo this move as well. So in game, you had some other move over here. It was pawn capturing this piece of the knight, I guess.
Yes, it was more complex. But this was the idea. This is the idea that Alexander prepared.
This is the idea he prepared, where he got this knight to c7 guarded by itself, threatening two very important pieces, and the only way you could capture was to put your queen in danger. So
yeah. Do you think then it's safer for black to just move the king to make sure it cannot be captured?
That would have been the safest move.
But not the best, perhaps.
I mean, then you maybe lose a rook, right?
Yeah.
But you don't lose the game. So that's probably the best answer to that, is to just move the king out of the way.
If you don't want to gamble. If you don't want to gamble your way.
because there's no concept of check in
True.
quantum chess.
True, he
So he
could
could
have
have just
castled.
passed it. So here we see the outcome where Alex won the game, but again, we have errors, so we've got a little bit of a piece of a knight left in.
Tiny knight on d5, so small.
Yeah. That was cool, though. It was neat to see prep that went into it, and he found a strategy that I think is actually really strong. I mean, I'm sure people will come up with counters to it, but
It is. I'm gonna bring up the cross table for a moment and see who Alexander opponent will be. He's gonna face Sean. Sean has beaten Ethan in that third quarterfinal clash where Ethan was a queen up, but the rook of Sean got to capture both kings positions. It was discovered on the back rank. There was nowhere to run for Ethan's king, so Sean will need to come up with some quantum preparation too if this is how Alexander continues in the semifinals.
yes, for sure.
Chris, tell us about your thoughts on this very first occasion that a quantum chess tournament has happened. This is your baby. You started working on this project years ago. Tell us briefly the history of how you ended up making this game, quantum chess, and the variants that existed before.
So it started as just a little tiny class project I did for a class I took for fun. It was about creativity and invention. And the professor suggested, given my background in quantum computing, I try and invent a game that would help people understand quantum physics a little better. So I made a little 5x5 prototype of a game where you had a single type of piece and it jumped around on the board by splitting. It wasn't a fun game. But it was
One
fun.
piece.
I mean, it was built on top of a simulation of qubits, and it used quantum unitary evolution. It's just a fancy way to say it was truly quantum in nature, the way it was true to the math of quantum mechanics. And so I showed it to my advisor at USC, and he said, "Hey, I know a guy who might be interested in this." He introduced me to Spiros Michalakis at Caltech.
Shout out to Spiro. I think he's here with us
yes,
in the chat. Thank you,
He's in
Spiro.
here, and Spiros loved it. Spiros is I believe his official title is something like the Director of Outreach for IQIM, but he does a lot of science advising and outreach stuff. He's very into like the quantum games. He was actually the science consultant for a lot of the Marvel movies and Ant-Man, which is how we got the Anyone Can Quantum video.
We watched it twice on my channel even before today's broadcast. We are a huge fan of the Caltech short, so that is a brilliant creation. Spiro, Chris, the entire team behind Anyone Can Quantum. If you guys haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Paul Rudd versus Stephen Hawking, narrated by Keanu Reeves.
Yes, so that was a very fun experience. But it took a while for it to evolve from my little prototype into a version of quantum chess that you actually see in that video. And that was the first version where the pieces could do like a split double move.
The double move is not in the game anymore, is it?
Right, it's not in the game anymore. My reasoning behind that was if you're splitting a piece, you're sort of accomplishing half the work. And so I figured, well, if you give it the double move, then on average, you're accomplishing one move. But that version of the game had a lot of problems on the engine side of things. And then when we actually set out to try and run it on quantum hardware, it was very difficult to deal with the double move. And so I simplified it to the split move version where you're definitely moving your piece, but it's only one move away, and it's a split position between the two. But
I like it this way. I think it's more understandable that you split your piece, so it's a half piece or half move.
Yeah, so I like this version much better too, and it's a lot easier on the math. I think it'll be a lot easier to develop AI for this version, so people will have a computer player to play against. But it has been a long time coming. After the whole Anyone Can Quantum video, I spent a lot of time updating the game, but I was also working on my PhD at the time. And then a couple of years ago, my wife and I had our first child.
Congratulations.
And so other things that were taking a lot of time, and so it really delayed the development of quantum chess. But then when Google came into the picture and asked if we could run it on their quantum hardware, I decided to step away from the graduate program with my master's and focus on this full time. And so now still very busy as a father, but now I can focus all of my intellectual energy on developing quantum chess. And it really helped light a fire under the project. It brought a lot of interest to the project from outside, and so I was able to hire a development team, Arkenforge Studios, and they helped turn it into what you see today. So it's been a whirlwind the past year or a year and a half of development, but it's made a lot of progress and improvements, and I'm excited that we got to have a tournament today. It's an incredible experience.
The first ever quantum chess tournament and the semifinals and final will be part of the Q2B Quantum Computing Conference. So do join us on December the 8th and December the 9th for the finals. We do have the !conference with the link to the conference's website, how you can join, how you can sign up. We will be there. We will be there for the semifinals and finals. I can't wait to see more quantum chess strategies. It was fascinating what Alexander came up with as preparation,
Yes.
and if there will be more of that in the semis and final.
Yes, that's always been my hope with this game. I didn't design it with specific quantum strategies in mind. I didn't design it to show off specific aspects of quantum mechanics. I basically set out and said, okay, if players can create superposition, and if movement was true to the math of quantum mechanics, then maybe they would develop strategies that relied on stuff like entanglement and interference or things like that. But this was actually the first time I've seen prep go into developing a quantum strategy like that, and it was really cool.
I'm fascinated by this world. I still have lots of question marks in what case is which, and I do still consider the captures, like I want to split my pieces and capture a piece, and then I remind myself, no, Chris told me you cannot capture as a split move. It was really interesting in the game between Ethan and Sean how Ethan's king was trapped on the back rank, so neither of them could escape. It didn't matter that the king could be on one square or the other, neither of them could run away, and that's why Sean was winning with the queen down. That was a fascinating position too. And how he had to capture on h1, maybe as a final example we could have that on the board, it's the king on g1 and h1. Let me bring back that scene so that people can see the board you are setting up, Chris.
We had trying to figure out how he got that. Okay, it was something like this. I don't remember what the rest of the board looked like, but is this like the relevant stuff so that I can set up?
Yes.
And we could even try it on a quantum computer again if we want.
Sure. Let's do that.
So we had this king split. This one was lower probability, but I think it's okay. You still get the same effect, essentially.
So this was in match 3 between Ethan and Sean.
Right. And so the idea here is that you can either try and capture on G1 or on H1. Now, if you capture on G1, wait for the computer to get the answer back to us. So you definitely capture, but there's still some king left over, and it could try and recapture.
And then if you end up going to G1 with the rook, in this case it worked. The king was eventually on G1.
Right, and so in this case, the white player measured their king out of existence. They lost on the they pushed themselves to lose the game essentially. But the opposite outcome could have happened as well. But if we just undo, and instead of capturing on G1, we go to capture on H1, it will either work because it's going to measure and make sure that the G1 king is there or not there, right? So if it works, then the G1 king isn't there and you win the game. If it doesn't work, well, then the king is definitely on G1 100%, and it can be captured again. So,
and that's the danger between playing that move and not rook h1. So rook h1 is the winning move here, not rook to g1. Right. The better move, because even in case of rook g1, as we saw, it could be the case that the king is there. But if you play rook h1, even if the king is not there, in this example it is, but I don't know if we can run it again to show that if it wasn't on h1 but on g1 with the rook move to h1, you will lose your turn, but you will see that the king eventually is on g1 and next move you can capture it.
Right. Now I'm pretty sure there were some other pieces right here also.
Yeah, and Ethan split his queen, Sean split his king, and they were chasing each other. So the other part of the board was really interesting too. But the king of Ethan couldn't escape from this back rank check.
Yeah, so we did it this time, and it did find that this didn't work. Now, this is some of the error that you see in quantum computers. This is probably a more difficult operation because it's entangling and it involves multiple qubits, and so you get more error. If you ran this on a simulator, then it would be 100% here. So actually, I'll jump out so you can see the difference.
Sure. So we're gonna set up the same position, but with the difference. Does it matter if the rook... Oh, this position you mean. I see.
So it was something like this. And I think in the game the rook was actually here.
Yeah, the rook was on d1, but it's the same idea that one of the kings... Right. You need to choose between moving the rook to g1 or h1, and it's not the same.
Right. So if you capture on h1, it could work like that. Or we could get that outcome where the king is on g1. Now
and you haven't lost the rook, so you don't end up losing the rook if you move to h1.
Right. Now white could split their king again, and I think in game there was actually another piece right here, so there was no way for the king to ever fully escape from this. So black would just try it again. And if there's another piece here, then there's really nothing else they could do. In fact, I'm going to put another piece there just to really illustrate this.
Sure.
So let's say it's there.
So you split the king again, move it back to g1, and...
Right. So we try and capture there, and there's the successful. We try it with the failure. Might have to try it 15 times. There we go.
Depends on the universe.
So, white could try and split again, right?
Yeah.
But then you do this again. Oh, but then you could capture back, right? So that's why the rook should have been on d1 instead.
Yeah, the rook was on d1 in the game and no pawn on e2, but the same idea with this back rank. There was no time for the king to run.
Doing this over and over, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So.
What a turn of events in that match between Ethan and Sean, and this final game, the preparation of Alexander, the quantum chess idea of splitting the knights to then make it to c7 and either win a queen, end up capturing the rook, or even the king. So that was a really deep strategy and using the quantum powers of the pieces.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Final thoughts, Chris, and why shall people join us for the semifinals and finals? It will be part of the Q2B conference, and you guys can join us on the virtual platform of the conference.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited to see what new prep strategies we might see. It'd be cool to see Alex come up with some, and maybe some of the others take inspiration from it.
Do you think
So
they will? Do you think they will be inspired by Alexander's strategy and try to find a similar one?
I think some of them might, yeah. Yeah, I could see Doug might. That'd be cool.
I'm curious to see that. I'm really curious to see that. As you know, we have the comment exclamation mark conference. That's where you have the link to the tournament, the bracket, and also more information on the conference, how you can join us there. From here, we're going to go over, I don't know how much you know about that part. Chris, you told me that you started streaming again, and on Twitch, there's a thing at the very end of the stream that's called a raid. So we're going to go with all our viewers over to a chess channel, and I'm curious if we can convince GM Hikaru, the #1 chess streamer on the planet, to try out quantum chess. So what I'm gonna ask you guys, all of you who are joining us for the raid, let's ask him in the chat if he would be down to try out this really cool game designed by Chris. If we could get GM Hikaru to test it out and tell us his thoughts, that would be epic. Maybe a match against Paul Rudd? Do you think we could set up a match between Hikaru and Paul?
I think Spiros is in chat here, and he has Paul Rudd's number, so it's probably not impossible. I can't promise anything, but
let's tell Hikaru about how cool quantum chess is. I think that's the first step. So I'm asking all our viewers.
Yes. So
amazing.
Spiros said yes. I'm taking that to mean definitely 100% yes, it's happening.
Amazing. Let's tell Hikaru that we are challenging him. We are challenging him for quantum chess, a possible future battle against Paul Rudd. The raid is going through. Thank you everyone for joining, and see you at Hikaru's channel.